It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Andy, Rene, Alex, they're all here. Lots to talk about. Well, not really, but we'll find something. The EU's provisional law that would change everything Apple does. Is it a good idea? Congratulations to Apple for their Academy Award win. How is Apple playing a different game than Netflix? And can you now use your iPhone as a driver's license in Arizona? Might be a little careful using it on the highway. It's all coming up next on MacBreak Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust. This is TWiT.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 811, recorded Tuesday, March 29th, 2022. Hands off my Flappy Bird. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by Wealthfront. To start building your wealth and get your first $5,000 managed for free for life, go to wealthfront.com/MacBreak. And by IT Pro TV. Give your team an engaging development platform to level up their skills. Volume discounts start at 5 seats. Go to itpro.tv/MacBreak and make sure to mention MacBreak 30 to your designated IT Pro TV account executive to get 30% off or more on a business plan. And by 8 Sleep. Good sleep is the ultimate game changer and nature's best medicine. Go to 8sleep.com/MacBreak to check out the Pod Pro cover and save $150 at checkout. 8 Sleep currently ships within the U.S., Canada, and the U.K. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show where we cover the latest news from Apple, of which there is very little because we're still celebrating the news from Apple from 2 weeks ago. Rene Ritchie's here, though. That's how we know there's no news from Apple.
No, I'm ready to break some Mac. Leo, this is the week where we usually get WWDC announcements, and maybe it's not today, maybe it's tomorrow, but last year it was March 30th. So
really?
I got my fingers crossed. Yeah.
So, but it's usually in June, like June 6th or 7th or 8th, right? So,
yes, they'll announce it, though. Yeah.
Yeah, but they would announce it now, so you could what? Buy your plane tickets? You think it'll be live?
No, but we could talk for a good 34 minutes
yeah,
about
there you
that.
go.
Like the invitations. I mean, that'd be something.
That'd be something. Also here, Andy Ihnatko. He's on a hot spot today. How hot is it?
Yeah, I'm just having my fights with infrastructure this week, that's all.
Infrastructure battles continue in beautiful downtown Rhode Island. And because Rhode Island's so small that really anywhere in it, it's downtown. And from beautiful Marin County, we have Montreal, we have New England, and we have Marin County.
Skywalker Ranch. Basically.
OfficeHours.global maven Alex Lindsay. Hello, Alex.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello, hello. How are you?
Hello. Doing well.
So, I got my Mac Studio yesterday. That was fun. Plugged it in, turned it on. Done.
Did it look like your Mac Mini got swole? Is that what it looked like to you?
Yeah, I like it. I love it sitting there, and I just leave it on because I'm running AirMessage with it, so I can get my my iMessages on my Android phone. Thank you, EU. And so I don't want to turn it off, so the screen goes up. Hey, but I got a question. So I'm using the HDMI port to drive this 4K monitor, this gaming monitor, HDR. But it doesn't look that good, and I don't think it'll go past 60 hertz, even though the monitor will. That's because Apple did not put HDMI 2.1 on this computer? Am I right, Rene?
I think HDMI 2.0 should. HDMI 2.1 doesn't support anything anymore. It's like they made everything literally optional.
It's all imaginary anyway.
Everything is optional.
Yeah.
It's the most frustrating thing. But I think you can go up to 120 on HDMI 2.0.
It doesn't offer me that, so maybe it doesn't know that the monitor can do it or something. Anyway,
Macs are notoriously great at gaming.
It'd be better. Yeah, no, I know. But well, and this is one thing I've heard from people who have the studio display is I would really love ProMotion. I'd love to have that higher frame rate that I have on my iPad and my iPhone and even my MacBook.
That's a Pro display though, Leo. That's going to cost a lot more money and it's going to have to drive a lot more bandwidth. So
right.
Careful what you wish for.
Yeah, no, I can do it's a 4K. I'm driving a non-Apple 4K, which in theory should be able to. But anyway, I don't know.
The rumor is it's going to be 7K for 7K, the next Pro.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
7K, what a wear number. Yeah.
Well, because you need to be pixel accurate. So it's 24 inches for 4K. Sorry, 21.5 for 4K, 24 for 4.5K, 27 for 5K, 32 for 6K, and then 36 for 7K. Or you go off grid in Apple.
Who would want
Everybody's watching on their phones anyway. Why do these people even care?
Who would want?
Because the phone people are docile. It's the Mac nerds that'll cut you.
What is the deal with 5, not 4, and 7, not 8?
Native resolution.
Is that it? That they can't get monitors that have that?
Yeah, like if you go read the blogs of all the human interface developers, all the app designers, all of our little developer friends, they will tell you exactly why their eyeballs will never look at anything that falls off the pixel grid ever again.
All right. So there's a good explanation for it all. It's nice, but I have to say, it's no slower. I have a Max, which, by the way, if you'd asked me 6 months ago, I would have said, "Ooh," I would have coveted it. Now I want the Ultra, which Lisa has, and I don't detect it. I am not doing photogrammetry. Alex, I want you to send me that Cinema 4D
I'm going to get that done
thing.
this week.
Yeah.
Last week got away from us.
No, you got other stuff to do. This is a
No, but
your hobby.
we'll get it this week.
Yeah. I'm
beating
curious.
George's 3090 card with AI. What's it called? Video enhanced AI. Topaz video enhanced AI. We were beating it by a good 15 seconds, which made me super happy.
Oh, that's neat. Well, now they've got the 3090 Ti's for only $4,000. So
I was turning Steve Jobs' keynotes, like the original Mac Mini keynote, into 4K, glorious 4K, very cartoony 4K, really fast.
I definitely think it's a lot about what the software is optimized for.
Yeah,
I mean, I think
you're right.
that's really what we're going to find.
I think you're absolutely right. And for single core software, of which we still have a majority, it's predominant. There's no difference between a MacBook Air and Lisa's Ultra, right? So that's kind of, I should have bought a MacBook Air.
Well, but you're gonna throw more around than a MacBook Air would handle within its thermal envelope. Like you're gonna go over 20 minutes on a sustained load at some point. You're gonna be happy with this, Leo. It'll be a good home theater machine for you.
Well, okay, that's our news.
You mentioned the EU though. I have so many hot takes.
Oh, we should probably talk about this. Okay. So hot take time. EU, the European Union, as it's known, the Schengen nations have provisionally agreed on a law that would force Apple and anybody big enough, anybody with annual sales of 7.5 billion euros, 45 million monthly users, and a value of more than $83 billion. So I think Google and Apple both qualify there. To
Only
have
if you don't count Ireland. If you avoid Ireland.
Don't count Ireland. And they will have to have a bunch of stuff. Third-party app stores is the big one. Allowing app developers access to features that historically have maybe been kept private, like for a long time Apple kept NFC private, although it's now available now, right? That means Apple would have to write a framework for all of the hardware that they have in the phone. So this is a non-trivial process. Ensure that users have the right to unsubscribe from core platform services as easily as they subscribed. I think Apple's pretty good on that one. I don't think we have to worry about that. That's more apps and stuff. Not require default web browsers, messengers, all of that stuff on installation of the operating system. Make sure, and this is one that some people have said, and I'll be very curious what you guys think, implies that Apple would have to open messages to WhatsApp and other messaging products. Ensure the interoperability of their instant messaging services, and this is important, basic functionalities. So that's, I guess, open to interpretation. Give sellers access to their marketing or advertising performance data on the platform. Inform the EU about acquisitions and mergers. You can't rank your products or services higher than those of others. That's more aimed at Google. I think, with Google Shopping, they were in trouble for that with the EU some years ago. Reuse private data collected during a service. Is that religious services? I don't know. For the purposes of another service. Okay. Unclear. Establish unfair conditions for business users. That's pretty broad. Pre-install certain software applications, and you can't require, this is the big one, for Apple anyway. This is the one they fought tooth and nail. Require app developers.
You can't pre-install phone.app? I have so many questions about these.
Oh yeah, that's a good question. Should I have to allow a third-party dialer? You can use third-party dialers on Android, I think.
Yeah.
Require app developers to use certain services, for example, payment systems or identity providers, in order to be listed in app stores. In other words, you can't force them to use the Apple App Store or Apple payment systems, rather. The fines are substantial. 10% of revenue, 10% of global revenue. For a repeat offense, 20% of global revenue. That's enough. That's not a €5 million a week fine.
No.
That's a hefty amount of money. Okay, I'm done talking. What do you think? Rene, you said you wanted to talk about this. I'll start with you.
Yeah, so I mean, in general, I think there's a lot of stuff here that absolutely needs regulation. My constant fear with the EU is that they don't always approach this from strategically smart or informed positions. And I would only point you to browser ballots and cookie disclosures and GDPR that stop small companies from even being able to handle the legislation. And this, again, is overly broad, it's unspecific, it's not specific, and it doesn't... I worry that it's going to do a lot of harm rather than a lot of good, or maybe in the course of doing good. For example, just messages interoperability. Even at a basic level, there's huge questions about what that means for end-to-end encryption, which cynics among us would say maybe is the whole point of them wanting to push it. But even things like, I don't use Facebook, and right now I use iMessage or Signal because end-to-end encryption is really important to me and privacy is important to me. But if somebody decides they're going to switch to WhatsApp or to Facebook Messenger, and it's just going to automatically interoperate, and then they'll get my messages, and Facebook will have my data. And we already have email that does that, and messages was sort of the opposite of that. And I'm afraid we're going to lose a lot of stuff just because they're not well informed or careful about how they legislate it.
It is a weird thing for a government to make what is essentially a big technical decision for these companies. For instance, Amendment 127, this is from Benedict Evans' tweet, proposal for regulation, Article 6, Paragraph 1, point F-A, parenthesis, new. You should do all of this without, while guaranteeing a high level of security and personal data protection. And I think
it's like a backdoor only we can access. That was another one.
Apple would argue this is, absolutely going to impact security. This is for the interoperability between messaging providers. Go ahead, Andy. I know you wanted to talk. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm with Rene here. There are a lot of intentions in this measure that I absolutely support. I do think that I've been saying for a long time that the largest tech companies, Apple included, have been maybe sailing along under the pretext that we will never be regulated. We will always be able to do exactly what we want to do when we want to do it. We will never be answerable to any outside influence. And they don't realize exactly how much these large companies have benefited from it. The internet has benefited from it. Users have benefited from it. But we have long since entered an age where this helps large companies stay large and small companies stay either acquired or become dead. However, this is so broad and all the different earmarks that it's trying to achieve that it does seem that it's almost impossible for a company the scale of Apple or Google to just basically conduct business. Does this mean? I was trying to read through the entire thing, and part of it made me think that okay, so if a developer decides that they don't want to use Xcode anymore, they want to use Code Warrior, does that mean that Apple has to allow people to develop apps using whatever code system that they want to develop? Is this open season for any developer or any industry with any sort of a beef against Apple or Google to simply say we're going to sue you because we want to be able to do whatever we want to do on form, and you can't say boo about it because you're going to have to answer to the EU about it? I think that the only way for a company like Apple to continue to be as good as it is under these limitations is to simply say, okay, EU, congratulations. We're going to create a whole version of iOS, a whole version of macOS, a whole version of our systems for you that don't do very much. The people in the United States and outside the EU are going to get the whole schmagillet, and it's going to be awesome. And you're going to hate it. You're going to hate how hard it's going to be to keep your spam messages off of your device. You're going to hate how hard it is to keep malware off of your phone. You're going to talk to any of your cousins in the United States and your cousins in China, India, anywhere, and you're going to say, why the hell is the EU doing this to me personally? Instead of the EU saying, here are some measures that we would like to put some limits on the power of trillion-dollar companies. They're instead basically ensuring that they're going to become an archipelago of sadness.
I should point out that the provisional agreement is not yet law. It has to be approved by the Council and the European Parliament. And then after its entry to force, there's another 6 months before it has to be implemented. So it is just a proposal. So there's still time to change the provisions. Alex, I'm sure, wants to say something. I'm going to give Alex a chance here.
All I say is 6 months is an insanely short, for what they're asking for, it's an insanely short runway. But we have to realize that politicians are, basically
they're not technical.
Toddlers.
Yeah,
they're technical toddlers. They have no idea what they're doing, and then what they have is a bunch of.
Well, I would say differently. I would agree with Andy that they're trying to enforce a societal good, but the problem is it's hard for them to understand what they're saying, what the implications would be. For instance, a lot of cryptographers say this is going to break cryptography in apps like WhatsApp.
The thing is that this is like having a 12-year-old do open heart surgery. We know that there's a problem, but we're going to give someone who doesn't know anything about what they're doing. Maybe they read some books and watched Doogie Howser, but they don't know how to actually do what they're doing.
Well, how do we solve that, though, Alex? Because surely you're not saying the companies should self-regulate. They're not.
Well, I don't know if I think that as a user, I think that I'm better off with the way it is right now. As a small developer, I'm better off as the way it is right now. As a large, rich developer, I'm better off with the new rules because I can now do all the things I can do to make more money. As an intelligence agency, I'm way better off, doing that, here. So we understand where the pressure's coming from the Five Eyes. Let's be clear. The intelligence agencies, that's the big push on politicians to do this because they have to crack this up because Apple is like 3 revisions away from cutting them out completely. The issue is that they're going down this path. Sometimes it's better to do nothing than to stick your hand into it. If you're not sitting doctor, they're going to be like, well, if we're not sure what we're doing, we might not go do it. And this is something that is going to have a huge impact on a lot of people. Again, for the large, rich developers and the intelligence agencies, this is a boom. Boom. This is great for them. For small developers, the problem is you look at Apple TV. The tvOS is a disaster because they let all these folks, you can log in this way and you can sign up for this and you can do it. And you know what I do is I don't even go to the App Store anymore there. Like the tvOS App Store is dead to me because, unless there's some new, because the problem is that, and I really thought about this over the last couple of weeks, is that I don't use that iOS. I don't use the tvOS at all because it's too full of weird signups. And that's what's coming. CNN Plus came out, I guess, and it's got, and I opened it up and I looked at it and it had a weird sign-in. And I was like, here it comes. Here are the weird sign-ins that we have to deal with. And the problem is the problem for Apple is a money issue, not so much with the apps, the 15%. I realized that the reason I don't update my computer every 2 years, I usually wait 5 years for my main computer to upgrade, it's the apps. It's the installs. Like I look at it and go, oh, I don't have 2 days to find all of my serial numbers and find all the stuff. Like all the stuff from the App Store just loads in. But, and so the reason that I think one of the reasons people update their phones all the time is because it's easy. And when we take that away, it's not going to be as fun.
So one of the things I like to do is I like to make sure that I challenge my opinion all the time because I have a lot of beliefs and I want to make sure they're loosely held. So I went around and looked, and one of my favorite people who has, I believe in Gatekeeper on iOS. I don't think it'll make the huge difference some people think it'll make, but I believe in it as a philosophy. And Riley Testat, and I'm going to pronounce that wrong, I apologize. He's the one who's been doing the alternative app store on iOS for a long time now. And I like a lot of his views on it, but even he was worried about this, and he tweeted out that sideloading can allow new apps to exist, but it shouldn't affect those who explicitly choose a curated, secure platform. And forcing Apple to allow alternative app stores is great for giant companies like Facebook and Epic, but it's much worse for consumers. And for good or for ill, the example everybody's using is we have app tracking transparency, for example, but what happens when a company like Facebook, who has the 5 most popular apps or 5 of the 10 most popular apps on iOS, decides they don't want to follow those rules anymore and they pull them off and say, here's the new Facebook app store for you. And it's not regulated by anything like what an iPhone user expects. It's
That's
regulated by a Nova VPN rules of conduct.
This is exactly what I've been talking about for the last I don't know how many months.
And he's someone who makes an alternative app store.
But this is exactly the problem, is that these larger companies will force us off the platform, or we'll just have to give up on their platform. And that's going to put a lot of pressure, and it's not going to be user friendly.
Does feel like there are reasons. What isn't SMS a form of interoperability? I know it's not encrypted, but isn't it
Which
a form
breaks
of
encryption? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's not encrypted at all, but that is a form of it. I mean, a number of people have pointed this out in our TWiT community and so forth. But you do have SMS interoperability.
You could argue that already makes it interoperable.
Yeah.
Well, that cuts to the heart of the problems with the proposal as it's written right now. They don't, are they talking about feature for feature interoperability, or they are simply saying that it's okay if the Messages app can simply send a message to the Android stock messaging app. It doesn't have to have all the features of iMessage network. But my problem with this is, essentially, it turns the EU court system into a bludgeon against Apple and all these companies because imagine it's not Google, imagine it's the smaller company saying that I insist that you support my. I created this very, very small messaging system. I want you to sue. I'm going to sue Apple. I want you to force them to allow me to have access to the full iMessage stack. And even if the courts say no, Apple doesn't have to do that, that's a whole bunch of time and effort and money that Apple has to do to basically defend off these BS actions against them. So yeah.
Or it's Trump, or it's Bill Gates, or it's Putin, or it's Elon Musk, or it's Bob from Sacramento's new 3-day iMessage coding problem, and suddenly platform. And also, it's interesting because you can handle these things at a platform level too. Like Palm Synergy and BlackBerry Hub did a wonderful job of totally abstracting away what service you were using. It would just present to you what their preferred service was, and if you didn't want to, you didn't have to engage with it. But if you did, you would just go to this one place. You'd have every person, and you could send them messages through their preferred way of being messaged. And that seems like
And by the way,
doing all this.
Maybe this is the answer, but on Android, I can use almost any messenger as my SMS platform. In fact, including Signal. So if I think
it'll just come back to green bubbles. I think that's the thing that keeps people out of things, is not so much and you can make them all interoperable. It's the green bubbles.
It's the green bubbles they don't like. I mean, that you do make a strong point, which is that we don't know if it's the intelligence agencies, but there are definitely stakeholders that compete with Apple that are pushing the EU in this direction. And, I think the EU's response to people who want to compete with Apple without actually competing in the marketplace. So I think that's
fundamentally, I think the EU is trying to find some way that European companies can compete with the American companies that they're trying to. Right. How do we crack that open a little bit? You have companies like Spotify and others that are saying it's not fair.
Do you think it's possible to do any of this without compromising privacy and security, or do you think that that's just a non-starter, Alex?
I think that you need to. I think that for messages or interoperability, you just need to be able to, as a user, turn it off. In fact, it probably should be off by default. I'm not going to be able to do that.
And then you can turn it on if you want to.
Someone has to go in. Yeah. If you wanted to do it and take a chance, you can do that. So you just want to kind of. But I think that what Rene mentioned earlier is problematic in that area. Like that you could accidentally suddenly start talking to somebody that isn't inside of that system. And I think that for me, I would rather keep on using the different message systems in their own silo for what they're good for, not rather than trying to. I mean, half my front page of my iPhone is all different messengers.
Yeah, well, that's one of the reasons we want to stop that. I mean, don't you want to get to one messenger that can get messages from everybody?
That, then. Huh? Like emails like that. Like if I
remember
email,
Adium,
I don't know if it goes to Gmail.
Remember Adium? I mean, somebody, Kev Brewer in our discourse, our Club TWiT discourse, said when Windows Phone came out, the original Windows Phone, you had a tile that collected all the messengers, and Google and Apple and everybody else didn't like it, so they made sure that wasn't possible. So, I would like to have one messenger program that could handle all the inputs.
AIM, right?
The problem is that
old school messengers.
The problem is that trying to get that to happen, you get back to the green bubble problem, which is that it'll be always lowest common denominator. Each one of these has their own way of doing things, and they're interesting in their own way, and I am modal in how I use these different pieces and what I expect them to do when I'm doing them. Well, and I'm fine with I'm fine with that because that's where
you're the one who battles for customer convenience. I mean, that does not sound like an ideal. That sounds as bad as having to log into different CNN Plus and different. I mean, really, are you kidding me here?
Yeah. But the thing is that we already there. It's one thing to crack something up that's already been built as a unified structure, and another one to take a whole bunch of things that have grown. These have all grown up like little weeds, and you're now going to try to pull them together. It's just that if we did that all at the very beginning,
that's
but we're
not quite the actual history. So they were interoperable, and then companies decided they wanted to silo it. In fact, it's the opposite from email, which has, by the way, figured out a way to interoperate. It used to be well, pretty well. It used to be if you were on CompuServe, you couldn't email Genie or MCI mail.
Well, they regulated that, right?
Well, I don't think it was regulation. I think it was standards. I don't know. That's actually.
Well, they said if you're going to merge, you have to make it. Well, there was a merger going on, and they said if you're going to merge these two companies,
you have to make them interoperate.
Time Warner, you have to make them. But the other thing that's super interesting is that Apple actually did go to the carriers. They had SMS, and they were super upset because they couldn't compete with all the features that were coming out and all these other messengers like WhatsApp. And they went to the carriers. Scott Forstall talked about this in one of his interviews, and he said, "Can we do this? Can we add this?" And they said, "No." And Steve just said, "Fine, we're going to do it ourselves." And then he started rolling out these features. We could have had a very different history.
Yeah, the thing is that I think that, again, the App Store, when we talk about breaking up an App Store, the App Store is a pretty unified thing that came up from scratch, built a certain way. And so tearing it apart and starting to try to make it work differently, I think, is complicated and probably won't work.
I agree with that. On that, I don't know if it won't work, but it is complicated.
Yeah, it'll be complicated and it'll stink for small developers and for users. That's what we're pretty guaranteed. And then so that's a different situation than having a whole bunch of things that all of us have been using for the last decade and trying to figure out what's the common thread between all of these, and they all have very different ways of approaching things. And it's as complicated and painful to do it well. It would be, you'd have to get them all to agree. We're all going to have these features and we're all going to have these things. And all you can really get them to agree on is pushing text back and forth, about how they're going to handle that. And so I think that, that's what we'll do. It says basic. So you can put your thumb up, you can put your thumb down, you can put a heart, you can put text back and forth. Okay, we're done. Like that's all that's going to happen here, I think.
Yeah. Well, nobody would complain about that, right? I mean, Google's already doing that.
As long as I can turn it off.
Can I introduce you to Twitter?
My whole thing is as long as I can turn it off, I'm okay.
Sorry, Rene?
I said, can I introduce you to Twitter?
Well, that's another story entirely. Man, I was
just complain about everything.
I was on Twitter during the Academy Awards. Did that heat up or what? Holy cow.
I didn't pay any attention to it. It was a blissful Sunday evening of editing videos for me.
Yeah, it's a good argument for not having Twitter open. Whew.
Or the Oscars.
Whew. Well, actually, the Oscars are fun. You missed out on some fireworks. You missed out on some real fun.
You didn't need to because we had Twitter.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Just don't do both, right? Don't cross the streams. Go ahead.
It goes back to that Craig Mazin thing where he said that Twitter makes him feel like he has to immediately express a very loud, obnoxious opinion about something he knows nothing about. Otherwise, he misses out on everything. And it's like this constant source of anxiety. So I just decided I don't need to have opinions on these things, Leo. I'll focus on a very small set of things that I actually pay attention to. And the rest of the world can go by.
I think that's actually a very wise, health-conscious decision. Good on you for doing that. Unfortunately, as pundits, we have to have opinions on everything.
You know what they say? They say that, I like to quote my philosopher daughter that said, fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, and hate leads to Twitter.
I did see Frank Oz was upset. That, like when Yoda gets mad at you, Yoda got mad at the Oscars. That's not
good. Let's take a break and then we'll talk about the Oscars because Apple had a good night. A very good night. Our show today brought to you by Wealthfront. Building your wealth is maybe not as much fun as speculating in the casino that is the stock market. Stock trading, hey, it's a wild ride. But the thrill of risking it all is best enjoyed, as they say, in moderation, like street food and casino gambling. If you're playing the market, Wealthfront. Somewhere where you can build your wealth because retirement comes sooner than you think. College for your kids comes sooner than you think. Buying that first house. You might think day trading stocks is a secret to investing success, but Wealthfront has a ton of data to show that time in the market almost always beats timing the market. Wealthfront's globally diversified portfolio is automatically optimized to hit the goals you set. That's where you want to focus, the goals you set, and the risk level you're comfortable with. You also get things like automatic tax breaks to boost your returns, even when the market dips. That's tax loss harvesting. They actually invented the software to do it. You can look it up. And that's kind of cool. You could personalize your portfolio, of course. I mean, it's not a question of just saying, okay, you do it. You get to choose a wealth of funds handpicked by Wealthfront's financial experts in all kinds of categories. Social responsibility funds, maybe you want crypto or clean energy funds. No wonder Wealthfront's trusted with over $27 billion in assets. Investopedia just named Wealthfront their best robo-advisor for 2022. And considering the year isn't even halfway over, what are we, in March? That's pretty good. Good job. To start building your wealth, get your first $5,000 managed free for life. Go to wealthfront.com/MacBreak. WEALTHFRONT.com/MacBreak to start building your wealth. Go to wealthfront.com/MacBreak and get started today. Perhaps you did know, Rene Ritchie, that Apple won Best Picture Oscar for its movie CODA.
Saw the press release.
You saw the press release. Actually,
you were so happy.
Some people were saying, see, Tim Cook's a genius. They didn't produce CODA. They didn't order CODA. They bought it at Sundance, where it was a big winner in Sundance, and they spent some money. Not a lot, actually. I think it was $25 million to buy it. I mean, not a lot for Apple. Anyway, apparently
They
was...
didn't spend it on a rock action movie the way Netflix would have.
Yeah,
there was
exactly.
a little bit of strategy involved.
There was apparently some bidding, according to the Wall Street Journal, but Apple's, this is the story. CODA Oscars win caps Apple's, I'm hard to parse this title. CODA Oscars win caps Apple's quality over quantity approach. In other words, they don't have the catalog. They can't compete with Netflix or Walt Disney for that. But if you can pick well, you can have winners. And a Best Picture Oscar, first one for a streamer. Although, again, to get eligibility, they had to put a brief run in a few theaters.
Now, Leo, did you mean caps like I would Gen X caps like kill something, or caps like a Centennial?
When you talk to the Oscars, you don't know.
Lie?
These days, it could be either one. CODA
Oscars
win caps Apple's quality. I think they're trying to write like Variety. I don't know. This is the Wall Street Journal. Use English, please. What they're basically saying is that Apple has done everything right in terms of acquisitions. Yeah. They have
validates. Do they mean validates?
Validates. Good. Better word.
You're welcome, Wall Street Journal.
Thank you. You're editing the journal now.
Andy and I don't come cheap.
Helmed. See that? They're using these Variety words. Helmed by former Sony TV executives. Apple TV Plus has made plenty of deals with big-name talent. But in this case, this was spotting a winner at Sundance and saying, we'll take it. And having the checkbook, frankly, to buy it.
Now I'm looking through it to make sure it doesn't say they Oscared on Sunday and podiumed for a while.
Yeah. But the other part of this is that it isn't just writing the check to get the movie. It's also waging an Oscar campaign that lasts months and months and months.
Good point.
CODA was like CODA was an outsider. It really, according to people who've been like Monday morning quarterbacking its win in the trades. They've been talking about how it came up. It was one of those horses that comes out that starts bad, but then like finishes very, very strongly for reasons that are unfathomable. But that doesn't happen unless the distributor pushes this nomination and then capitalizes on it. The thing that I keep wondering about these kind of things is that yes, Apple got a certain amount of like reflected prestige on the fact that yes, they were the people who wrote the check for it. Wrote the check for it to appear on Apple TV. They bought it. They didn't like pay for it. They didn't produce it.
It wasn't their idea.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's not like Ted Lasso where they basically allowed this thing to happen. The question is it bringing in enough viewers to justify all the expense? And is the luster of a reflected Oscar win enough to enough to trump the idea of, well, is it
that's their advantage,
to,
Andy,
finance Theranos?
Because Netflix has to get the money back, right? But Apple, they're more like Amazon in that case. This is a prestige product. So I think that $25 million to get an Oscar or whatever, and plus whatever they spend on advertising. That's, for Apple's point of view, makes the services valuable, I think.
What I'm getting at, though, is that, like, are enough people actually watching that movie to think that Apple TV has a viable position on my streaming box?
Yeah.
This is a channel I keep turning to frequently. Whereas Hulu, for instance, I watched Bob's Burgers last night. I got caught up on Archer, and last weekend I wrote I read Death on the Nile specifically because the movie is coming to Hulu today.
Hulu is actually a dark horse that's coming up strong. I noticed we're watching a lot of shows like The Dropout, the Theranos story on Hulu.
Theranos, right? Exactly.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
But awards.
Go ahead.
All I was going to say is, awards are talent acquisition. Like that's what you're doing.
Right.
So you don't care about how many people are watching CODA. It's the fact that you won an Academy Award changes the way Apple gets seen by the directors and the actors and the that type of thing. That's what this is. The Academy is an inside game. And so it's who gets hired for the next thing, and all those little bits and pieces. So an Academy Award winning streaming service is, to win the best. Other people have won awards and Apple's winning, but that's why they play so hard, is because they want to get the Martin Scorsese's, the Francis Ford Coppola's, the ones that you're trying to kind of break down the folks that still are saying it has to go out to theater. You're trying to crack that wall, and every week, every award is another brick, cracking that, another slam on that wall between theaters and between streaming, which they're trying to work out. So it puts you above the other ones, and so the other stuff follows along. But that's what an award gets you.
I also think it's fair to say that Apple.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, latency's killing us. I apologize. Renee, go ahead.
I was also going to say that I think it's also like Apple is willing to take a risk. Like, sure, Ted Lasso is made by Warner's, and sure, this movie was completely made before, and there are other people bidding on it. But Apple has shown that they're willing to take a risk to put their money behind a lot of eclectic products. They're almost like this artisanal craft thing that they're doing with Apple Arcade on the side as well. And that's not always been common, especially like Disney Plus will give you all the Marvel movies, all the Star Wars movies, all the Muppet movies, but you're not going to get Star Trek, you're not going to get DC movies, you're not going to get like a lot of non-franchise stuff. And even Netflix is putting a ton of money behind very big like The Rock movies, very like summer blockbustery kind of movies. And Amazon is doing similar, a lot of like action adventure series, those sorts of things. And Apple's palette is almost completely non-franchise and very, very diverse. And I think that they make it a point to reflect their beliefs on accessibility and their beliefs on diversity and opportunity. And I think they really want it to be first. Like, they really want it to be the first streaming service to win an Oscar, because being the third one doesn't really mean as much as being first. So they're willing to put a lot of budget behind it.
And to Andy's point, and Alex's, a Martin Scorsese or a Francis Ford Coppola is looking at how much money Apple spent on advertising to get the Oscar for your consideration as another plus, right? By the way, it's not just the first time a streaming movie has won. It's the first time a Sundance premiere movie has won. I didn't know that.
Nice.
So it's also a big win for indies. Some have said movies are dead. Not just some. Martin Scorsese, Ridley Scott, and Barry Diller, three odd bedfellows, have said really the idea of going to movies in the cinema, which was already kind of problematic, is, thanks to COVID and pandemic, really over. Unless you have a big block. What Ridley Scott doesn't like is that the comic universe is taking over. That in order to get people to go to the theaters, you have to have a comic book title or an action title.
I guess a lot of us have been talking about this for 20 years, which is that eventually the AV systems at the houses were going to get good enough that that the only reason you'd go to a theater is for something that felt bigger than your house. That's the reality. And most of us, have been talking about this for 20 years. So this is nothing new. It's not like COVID started.
You saw
this
it
was
coming.
a trajectory that was coming.
But has it happened? Is it happening?
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah, it's happening.
COVID sped it up for sure.
It sped it up by 5 or 10 years, but it was going down this path because our screens are getting bigger and higher resolution. We've got better sound systems. We've got all these other things that are happening around us, and the theaters didn't move fast enough forward. I mean, the only two theaters that are worth watching anything in is an IMAX or Dolby, and so those are the two.
Alamo.
Yeah, if you want to eat with it, but I mean, if you want to eat,
you can get tacos.
Here's the problem.
But now you can get tacos too, thanks to delivery services.
I can have tacos, but I can make the tacos at home and then watch them, and I can have and so
better popcorn. Thanks to you for sure.
The popcorn's good.
Much better popcorn now.
With what the popcorn's really good with is Hank's the
Hank's salt Hank.
Yeah, Hank's.
Which one?
Yeah, Salt Hank is
the truffle, garlic truffle.
I always get confused. Yeah, the garlic truffle is really good with it.
Good.
It burns, so you have to be very careful because it'll smoke up as soon as you put it in there. Just in case you're wondering. But
anyway, I forgot. Yeah, you have that
all the stuff he's got in it.
That really good method of putting the salt in with the oil. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So anyway, but the to go back to this, I think that these big theaters, they have an opportunity to give you something that's this massive over the top experience. So the Dolby the Dolby cinemas and the IMAX theaters and so on and so forth, they can do that. But the average theater, they're saving money on how bright they push the bulb. They're playing it too low. They're even they finally got to a point where they were letting us schedule our seats, but it was too late. And so I think that the theaters didn't invest fast enough into creating that kind of upper scale stuff that we had seen starting to show up in a lot of those theaters, and so they just fell behind that queue. And so I think it is true. I think that those theaters could provide other things. Right now they're just a little overpriced. If you want to do something in a theater system, it can be very painful. So I think that the upper shell of this is going to work well. That means big action adventure, but also cinematic, like big cinema experiences. It doesn't have to be.
Well, that's why it's the Marvel movies, right? That's why it's Batman.
Yeah, Marvel movie. That's why Disney did such a great job in acquisition. Between Lucasfilm and Pixar and Marvel.
Yeah, they built it. They saw the future of cinema.
They built the future. Yeah,
and this is what Martin Scorsese is saying. He's saying cinema as I knew it. The small.
But the thing, I guess what I would say though is
pictures aren't going to be in movie theaters anymore.
Yeah, but he has to get over the movie theater thing. Like the thing is,
right? I agree with
see
you.
them too.
I agree with you.
Like it's and more people. You're more likely to take a chance on a movie when it's part of your subscription than you are when you are going to have to pay. For me to take my kids and my wife to the theater is $100. With popcorn and drinks and everything else.
It's not as good as your popcorn.
Yeah, exactly. It's not as good. Not good for you either. This stuff is horrible. Anyway, so so to do that though is $100 for us to go to the theater. That means that movie has to be really good, and I think that's part of the problem is that going to the cinema has become a lot more expensive, and so that movie has to be that much better. And for me, again, if I'm going to pay for it, I want to go to a theater that's worth sitting down in. Number one, and number two is it's got to be a movie that's going to take advantage of that theater. And so for the artsy films, to be honest, I'd rather watch them at home.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Lisa went to see The Batman in a theater, first time in a while. She's been in a theater a couple of years. And it was a horrible experience because the kids were kids who had,
yes.
It only took 2 years for kids to be desocialized. The kids were on their phones, they were talking, they were throwing food.
Kick your chair.
Yeah,
it's horrible.
So, was it at an IMAX or was it at a?
No, it was a nice. We have a nice, the theater downtown and the stadium seating. It's a fairly nice theater on a big screen. It wasn't IMAX, but it was very nice. Mm-hmm. And you probably don't see kids at the $35 IMAX theater, but
I haven't seen it yet. The word around I haven't seen it yet. I haven't had time to go to an IMAX theater.
See, that's the point. When are you going to go?
Yeah.
Whereas you can see it as soon as it's streaming,
2 weeks.
You can sit down and watch it. So we watched King Richard on our 100-inch screen with our surround sound system, eating good fine, right? Alex Lindsay popcorn, and it was better than the movies. It was great, and it was like the movies in that sense.
And there's a 45-day window for HBO, so it'll be on Max within a month. It's great.
But I think Batman's a good example. I am going to go to see it on IMAX because I've heard that it's one of the best IMAX films that's been made.
Oh, really?
So
cool.
Yeah, it's supposed to be really good, and so I'm planning to go see it there. So there's things that I will go out of my cave every once in a while to go see something in.
But one of the
Dolby
things that's
Cinema
holding you back
IMAX.
is you have to drive into San Francisco, don't you? I mean, there aren't that many IMAX theaters in the country.
San Francisco or Sacramento. They're kind of, when all is said and done, they're kind of equal distance for me. So.
Yeah, both of which an hour drive or, but you have parking and you got to, So there's definitely a disincentive, if that's the case.
Right.
I think this is very good for people who want to watch a movie on their TV. It's also very good for TVs. I have to say, with my OLED TV, I feel like that's actually better than a theatrical experience.
You have Dolby Vision and Dolby Surround, Dolby Atmos at home. Like this, I watched it at home. I didn't see it at a movie theater. It was fantastic.
Yeah, and you're 10 feet away from a 70-inch screen. The screen is bigger unless you're at an IMAX or you're sitting right up front. And so it's really a much more immersive experience. I mean, it's immersive except that, if the doorbell rings, you can answer the door. But
nobody's kicking my chair.
Yeah, nobody's kicking your chair. Well, the information, Martin Pierce writing in The Information made a really interesting point. You couldn't blame Netflix management if they grumbled a little privately after Sunday night. They lost the Best Picture competition to a dilettante, an amateur, a company for whom streaming is primarily a brand marketing exercise. While Netflix has to make a dizzying amount of programming to capture every subscriber who draws a breath, Apple just needs programming that enhances its brand. The ability to be discriminating gives Apple an enormous advantage. Its pitch to filmmakers can be simple. Underline this one. Come to us. Your shows will stand up. Go to Netflix, Martin Scorsese, and they'll get lost in a morass of stuff.
Yeah, but the problem there is that Apple is still sticking to a sort of eat your vegetables sort of content strategy.
I agree.
So, but you'd love to get Scorsese, but what Apple lets you say, yes, absolutely, make The Irishman here. Make a story about a hitman who kills people indiscriminately. Do all the cussing you want. So they don't
mind cussing.
It's a very complicated.
As if you watch the morning show.
True.
They dropped the F-bomb.
The Jason Momoa thing was one of the most violent TV shows I've ever seen.
Yeah, but don't you feel like it is a little bit like Sunday School? I kind of agree with you, Andy. There's a certain.
I think Disney Plus is. I think
Disney's
Apple just
more
used
that way.
quick.
Yeah. But maybe it's because I finally got caught up on. Actually, I don't know why I'm getting caught up on like streaming last weekend, but I also finally got caught up on season 2 of Ted Lasso, and a lot of it was. Really? that character was going to do that in that situation? No matter what the stakes are, he's going to do this really, really nice thing? Is that really what's going to happen?
A little sugary. Now, Severance is not, by the way. Severance is interesting because
I haven't seen it yet.
It's an anti-work. Basically, it's an anti-work show. It's very interesting. Almost
perfect for Apple culture.
Yeah, it's almost about fascism, and it's very interesting. It's also a little sterile, but I think they let Ben Stiller be Ben Stiller, and so it is.
Warning: Ben Stiller is being Ben Stiller in this movie.
It feels subversive. So maybe Apple did understand that they were getting that brand a little bit and say, let's be a little bit more subversive. They did announce today that they have the first 12 weeks of the Friday night baseball doubleheader schedule. This is going to start April 8th with opening day. Remember, Apple did announce at the last event that they were going to have 2 games every Friday night. I'm not going to read all the games, but you could if you want. Apple put out a press release.
I'll be interested to see if they distinguish themselves that much from MLB. What I will say is that as a live streaming app, the MLB app is one of the best. It's just really, really well structured.
You mean in production, in how they do it?
The actual user experience of like, but not just the streaming to you. That can be done by not anybody, but it can be done at scale. The issue is that the interface is really nice. Like if you can get into different modes where you can see all the stats, you can do picture in picture between two different games. You can do a lot of really cool things inside of the MLB app in the both on the Apple TV as well as the iOS. And so I'll be interested to see how Apple makes it better than watching the game on the MLB system. And maybe they don't need to. Maybe it's just
but it is an opportunity since they are a technology company. Yeah. Just like Amazon does a little bit, they're going to have Thursday night football to kind of say, Amazon's been pushing this and it's kind of dumb, but the announcers will say, well, let's go to the AWS stats analysis. And they have stupid. He only had 32% chance of catching that. Like, who the hell cares?
Under pi to how many digits, Leo? Like, that's what I want to ask. But pi did they calculate?
But AWS is a good example of the fact that they haven't really innovated that much.
No.
They in their own app. So they've proven that they know how to stream a football game, but we haven't seen them really take that experience anywhere, from there. And so I think that's the real challenge.
Yeah, it's a big opportunity.
It's a big opportunity. Yeah.
I'd love to see them say,
hard.
show some tech chops and say, hey, look what we can do.
The problem really is that there is you're still the caboose. Like the MLB is still doing a game. It's for broadcast, and we're going to give you a feed. And if you're lucky, maybe some of the cameras are higher resolution or something like this. But the
4K would be nice, but I don't know if
I think the Amazon ones are streaming 4K.
Are they?
I think that but
what else would you do? Would you do a second screen experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's there's a lot of opportunity to, once you start streaming and you're not doing linear, there's all kinds of possibilities of, for instance, having decide which team, and you're going to have announcers that are not trying to be unbiased. Like we used to watch the Steeler football game. We used to watch the Steelers, and we used to listen to Myron Cope, which was the local broadcaster that had been there for 30 years or whatever. But we would listen to it on the radio, and even if he was off by like 3 seconds or 4 seconds between the radio and the football, and you never knew which one it was going to be. It was either ahead or behind. And but we listened to it because we didn't want to listen to the networks talk about Steelers. We wanted to listen to Myron Cope talk about the Steelers. And so I think that that's easy to do. It's hard to do in linear, really easy to do when you're streaming. I think that you could also have other audio tracks. For instance, you could have the beginner's version where you people could put in questions like, why are they doing that? Like, why are they and you could just listen to it and it'd be something. It'd be a couple ex-pros explaining why the quarterback does what it does. You can do all of these other things that become very interactive and have entirely different interfaces. You have the same game, but you can take that audience and break it into 10 or 15 different audiences that are interested in different parts of the game.
Yeah, wouldn't it be brilliant if you could turn it to sort of like a gaming streaming, where if you can watch like the latest version of NBA 2K22 or whatever, but it depends on. But you can watch whatever commentary you want, talk about like the action in this game. Imagine if baseball did this, or any sport did the same thing, where yes, you subscribe to this main channel that gives you the feed. However, there could be user generated content where I will create I will do my own like commentary stream live with it. So you can basically choose between a professional, you can choose between like a Johnny Most type of person who's been doing this professionally and just got fired from his local station because of the network, or just some idiot who like you, it doesn't give you insight into the proceedings, but at least like makes it more entertaining to watch. Well,
we did a stream where I streamed about 25 basketball games, and the thing to understand is I don't know anything about basketball. Like I don't understand it at all. I was a wrestler, so I didn't understand anything about basketball. It's just like I don't understand why these people are doing what they're doing, and it's moved so fast, and why can't we take a break and huddle, and like that kind of thing. And so we streamed all these things, and we had an ex-professional basketball player, and we had a social media guy that really likes basketball and well known for it. And the two of them sat there and talked, and sometimes had an extra guest watching the game, and we were streaming it with some of the cameras. And the interesting thing is that by the end of that, I completely understood basketball, and it's much more interesting to watch now because I understand all the defenses and all the things, because they were able to talk in a way. They were answering people's questions. People are putting questions into the stream like, why are they doing this? And they'd explain a screenplay, and they'd explain these are the sets of rules that you have to follow. And they just didn't, and they didn't have to, they were one-sided, so they didn't have to protect anybody. They would say, oh, this team is doing really well, or our team should have done better here. And they were just able to say a lot of things you wouldn't see on broadcast. It was so much more interesting, and I kind of ruined watching most of these games because I was like, oh, we were doing this little low-budget thing that was way more pleasurable to watch than the big budget.
Well, but that's why you pay a lot of money for a good play-by-play and color guy, because if they're good, they can do that. They do that. They bring those games to life. Yeah. So, there's like three. There's like three of them. There's there's some really bad ones, and there's only a handful of really good ones.
It drops off pretty fast.
I think also there is, and this is always a challenge. It's a challenge for any kind of specialized programming. There's a group in the audience that knows all that stuff, and they want to hear a different level of commentary. And
but that's why
it was just right for you as a neophyte, because but you probably wouldn't hear that on network broadcasts because they're playing to an audience that's hardcore enthusiast audience, right?
They weren't even calling the game. They're not calling the game.
Right.
They're just talking about the game. It's
Well,
like sitting around with two really smart friends that
Right.
know a lot about it. And the thing is that, but that's where I think that in a live stream, in a linear going out the TV with all the limitations of like lowest common denominator of every person's TV and everything else, it's really hard. I mean, Dolby has there are technologies that let you stack multiple commentaries, but no one knows how to use them. In a stream with an interface that you can design, you can very easily say there's a beginner stream, there's the pro stream, there's all these things, and these are just audio. They're all looking at the same game. They don't even have to be there. I mean, you can give them a low latency connection that they're watching the game through Zoom or through the Switch or through a variety of different technologies, and they're all just pumping their commentary into it. It's all embedded into up to 16 channels really easily. And then it's just sent out in the HLS packet of here's 16 different channels that you can choose from. And
I see what you're saying. Slice it real. What we've done with other kinds of media is the niche slices.
Right. The cost of that is a fraction. Because it's literally paying for commentators and the pipeline, but compared to a whole game,
but they're cheap. These guys,
nothing. No, but they're not cheap.
They're not Al Michaels' price. Let's put it that way.
It's not 20. It's not another 20 cameras and 3 broadcast trucks and an EVS. This is our 20 EVSs or whatever it is, or 18 of them.
I think a lot of the problem is the rights issue with the NBA. Or the MLB or NFL, where they would have to approve it, and
Yeah, that's the whole. But I think that's where we start seeing some interesting innovation, as opposed to just putting it online.
Some league is going to do
I think
that.
At some point and again, you get into it by saying I'm going to buy out the Friday ones, and then that's much more where you start to get people willing to experiment, and everything is doable with enough money, and Apple has a lot of it.
Right. And it shows off their bigger business, which really is the plus of the point of Apple TV Plus anyway. It doesn't need to succeed on its own like Netflix does. So I do think they're getting a little darker. So here is, as an example, I'll read a couple of shows from Apple TV Plus today. Stillwater. Carl, Addie, and Michael have a very special next-door neighbor, a wise panda named Stillwater. Or Pretzel and the Puppies. Meet Pretzel, the world's longest dachshund. Or, but then some of the new stuff. Get ready. For instance, this show based on a British a spy series called Slough House. Slow Horses. It's a spy series. Gary Oldman will star in that. I'm excited about that. Comes out in April.
Because Americans don't know the word slew? Is that why they changed it?
Is it Slough or Slough? I don't know how they probably say Slough House. I think Britons say Slough. We say Slough. Unless you're sloughing it off, and then we pronounce it slough.
Or sounding like A as
English
away.
Is a nightmare language. They probably say Slough House, I'm thinking, which would explain the title Slow Horses, right? It's about a bunch of MI5 spies who screw up in their career and are sent to Slough House to while away their days doing unimportant work. They're the Slow Horses. And Gary Oldman's one of them.
Commissioner of Gotham. What did he do wrong? Come on.
Roar, an anthology of darkly comic feminist fables. We'll see. 4-part Magic Johnson. Go ahead, Alex. Sorry.
The one thing I was going to say is that we talked about the fact that large established directors are upset that their movies won't be seen in theaters. But I will say, as a creator, this has never been a better time. I mean, I agree. A properly structured pitch has a really good chance of ending up on one of these networks
because there's such competition. Yeah,
there's such an enormous amount of competition right now for content. So if you have not even original idea, an idea that they think they can make, I think that you have a pretty good chance if it's just never been better for creators to get this out.
Apple paid a lot of money to Martin Scorsese for his book starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro, Killers of the Flower Moon, The Osage Murders and the Birth of the FBI. That's a movie from the 20s. That's prestige, right? And you got Scorsese.
Well, and then that Apple, like the thing is what these directors have hated forever is dealing with Hollywood producers who are constantly telling them how much they can and can't spend. Martin Scorsese doing this film, I'm sure that Apple was pretty much like, whatever you need.
Yeah.
like he's like, I think we need another $2 million.
I don't
for this
think
scene.
they.
And I'm sure that someone was like,
I don't know if they paid him to make this or they bought rights for streaming. I think that this is Paramount, and it's going to be in the theaters. So but they spent, I'm sure, a lot of money. Remember, they bought Finch, that Tom Hanks vehicle. That was very expensive, and I don't think made them a lot of money. I don't think it was a huge hit. They do have a deal for a Russian language series that was from Russian TV that was supposed to start this spring. I have to think that may not happen. Awkward. Here's maybe a more traditional Apple story, an animated film about Sam Greenfield, the unluckiest person in the world, suddenly finding herself in the never-before-seen land of luck, where she must unite with magical creatures to turn her luck around. Oh, but they've got a documentary about the history of James Bond, The Sound of 007. And I've been seeing clips of this musical adaptation of A Christmas Carol with Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds. Spirited.
I do think that the behind-the-scenes opportunities for a lot of these movies are really not being taken advantage of by any of the platforms. If you're really into the movie, or even if you're just into movie making, it's not that expensive to have, in the grand scheme of things, to generate another 30 hours of content about that thing. And because it's streaming, it's not like you have to figure out where to program it. You just put it up there with it. And and even like Disney's done a little bit of this with Mandalorian and some of the other ones, and it's been pretty boring.
It's why I buy movies from iTunes. Because there's otherwise no reason to buy a movie, but I want the extras. And, I miss DVD extras. This is the closest thing. Sometimes they actually have commentaries. Yeah. Not always. I wish you could see what the extras were before you spent.
They do. Apple shows it.
Really can I find out if they have like a director's commentary?
It has a list. You can't watch the preview.
No, but that would be good. Okay. Yeah. I just bought Dune. It was only $10. The whole show. It was only $10, but I figured Dune. There've got to be some extras there.
I'm surprised someone hasn't bought up, like, this is where someone just buy Criterion, and like the Criterion extras were the best. Like if you look at the Criterion release of like Armageddon or Traffic.
I love those. I actually subscribe to the Criterion channel. Yeah. Just for that. Yeah.
One of the things that's super fun is Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell were both supposed to be on late night talk shows at the same time, and they swapped without telling anybody. They both showed up for each other's slot, saying the other one had just blown it off because they weren't interested. And the hosts were tried to roll with it, but they insisted on answering it. They didn't let them change the questions, so they made them go through the questions they already had, and they just answered it. Brilliant. And that's the kind of stuff I want to see more of, because it increases interest, but also it breaks the fourth wall a little bit.
Dark comedy 10-episode series about the Garvey sisters bound together by the premature death of their parents. That could be dark. And then there's the comedy drama about the story behind the Beanie Babies, which stars Elizabeth Banks and Zach Galifianakis.
Care Bears, the dark
Sarah Snook is in that from Succession, so I'd probably be watching the Beanie Bubble. This one, it'll be interesting. The Greatest Beer Run Ever, starring Zac Efron and Russell Crowe.
Is that the old Apple II game?
No, it's Chicky Donahoe, who in 1968 left New York to track down and share a few beers with his childhood buddies, now in the Army fighting in Vietnam. Wow.
I read the article this was based on. That was a great story.
That sounds really interesting as a movie. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Total tangent, Leo. Did you see that Ryan Reynolds did a 1Password commercial because they're sponsoring his soccer team now? Oh. Yeah, on Ryan Reynolds' YouTube channel, he has what is actually a hilarious 30-second 1Password
His ads for Mint Mobile, his company, are fantastic.
We were asking what they would do with all that VC money. It turns out they gave it to Ryan Reynolds.
The rich just get richer.
Yeah, it is. Really
I suppose I could play this.
Yes.
So which one? There's a couple. There's a few of them.
The one that says cybersecurity and skincare.
Yes. Okay. Cybersecurity and skincare.
Football club. I need to watch out for our players.
Let's start over here.
As the owner of Wrexham Football Club, I need to watch out for our players. I've been a star for a long time. These guys have no idea what's coming. Look, we got a big match coming up.
This is very much Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
Cybersecurity. How many of you have heard of 1Password? Really? Okay, well, how many of you have downloaded 1Password?
They're all raising their hands.
No idea Wales was so cutting edge. So I guess you know that 1Password completely secures your digital life. Mullet! I will shove a red card so far up your ass, people will think it's your tongue. Now, let's talk nighttime skincare routines.
That's totally Ted Lasso takeoff, isn't it? That's pretty funny.
Except he's not nice.
Except he's not nice. Well,
and he's Canadian.
Why was he so angry at that guy with the red card thing? I don't understand that part, but
I think he had planned to say that. And he just had nowhere to put it.
Yeah, well, that's right. He had the line. He had to use it.
Yeah,
that's probably it. They're going to do a drama series inspired by Fritz Lang's 1927 film Metropolis. That sounds. These are all new Apple TV coming out.
I'm still thinking about the fact that I think that Ryan Reynolds just needs his own channel. Like just
he does.
He just call it Ryan Reynolds. Yeah, it's just funny.
He's too good.
Yeah.
A limited series Apple describes as an epic thriller set against the World War II Nazi occupation of Paris. Could be dark. Juliette Binoche will be in that as Coco Chanel.
You're getting good casts.
Well, see?
Yeah.
Yep. It's exactly what you were saying, Alex. Having the prestige awards really brings in.
You start getting those awards, and it's no longer just retail content. It becomes like it's a thing, and because the actors want to feel like they're going to get a chance to win an Oscar, or they're going to get a chance to win an Emmy, or something. They got to feel like they're going to that this is good, because that moves that they get to charge a lot more. Like an Oscar's worth millions.
Yeah.
Every time you do a film. So it's a big deal to win those awards for the actors and as a result for the platform.
I actually think what we're also seeing is that these Sony guys are pros it's not Eddie Q, and these Sony guys say, well, we got to do this. So for instance, there's a food show, a food documentary from Kari Joji Fukunaga telling the story of humanity through 8 defining ingredients. That's kind of classic, I don't know, Discovery or I don't know who does the food channel. 10-part documentary about the New England Patriots. That these are classics that you see on other streaming.
Big budget BBC, PBS collaborations.
Presumed Innocent is an 8-episode limited series from the Scott Turow novel of the same name. David E. Kelly, J.J. Abrams, executive producers. Pretty good. We haven't seen the cast list for that, but Kirsten Wiig and Laura Dern are going to be in a show called Mrs. American Pie. Apple Studios is producing this one, 10-episode comedy set in the early 70s.
And if you agree to the casting, Eddie Q will turn your iPhone service back on. It's a taken carrot approach.
So this is a long. I could go on and on. This is a long list. A limited series true crime story about the hunt for John Wilkes Booth in the aftermath of the Lincoln assassination. Manhunt. This is good. Apple's. You know what? It just takes time, doesn't it? It takes a while to spin up the wheels. There's a George Clooney, Brad Pitt, John Watts film, Untitled Project, a thriller in which 2 lone wolf fixers, Pitt and Clooney, get assigned to the same job. Apple outbid other major studios and distributors for the film rights. Amber Brown, an unfiltered look at a girl finding her own voice through art and music in the wake of her parents' divorce. That's more classic. Bonnie Hunt wrote and directed that. Yo Gabba Gabba. Oh, I remember that one.
Oh no!
Oh no!
I thought we had escaped that. I thought that
it's back, baby.
Joking about the Care Bears.
A live action Yo Gabba Gabba. Ghosted, Anna de Armas and Chris Evans. All right, romantic action adventure film.
But this gets back into when people say this is the. I mean, when you have access to all these actors and all these directors, it's kind of inevitable that you're not going to keep on. You're going to only have the biggest films on big theater screens. You're not going to really.
This is a great list. These are movies I would go see in the theater. Bad Monkey, and which is I love Carl Hyacin, one of my favorite novelists. That's a Vince Vaughn vehicle, and featuring a monkey. There is a monkey. Hyacin likes having animals in his novels. a series on the United Negro League baseball. This is I'm excited. I think Apple is kind of hitting their stride now. Some big name performers, directors, actors, writers, and
awards.
And awards, yeah. So congratulations on the Oscar for CODA, which I still haven't seen.
I will say that I think that Apple should, with all of this content that they're creating, I still think that they should tell these, like have the creators do whatever they want to do, but say pick one scene, and we just want that in Final Cut. We just pick one scene and think just grab one. We just want to do it because, basically releasing, basically taking all this content that they're creating, whether it's documentaries or other things like that, and cutting it together, even if they literally did it in Avid and then recut it in Final Cut, and then release it as a just release it for users. It's a master's course. I mean, when you open up anybody's project files, they've done it with GarageBand. They've done it with they took a Billie Eilish song. I mean, I got to tell you, the Billie Eilish song that comes with Logic now, that is incredible. Like it's the breakdown of it is amazing to just look what they actually put together there. So I think
love that.
Yeah, like the whole thing is that they're making all this content. They're not saying you have to do all of the scenes that way or you have to do the whole movie, but you just do one so that people can learn a little bit about it. And what it would generate almost immediately is more content about how to do this.
Like masterclass
has ever been created.
By the way, well done, Samuel L. Jackson. Sneaking in his mention of Masterclass during the Oscars. It's a tribute to Pulp Fiction. So Irma Thurman, Jackson, John Travolta come out. They're talking about it, and Samuel L. Jackson's talking about acting, and Travolta says, you should teach a class on that. He says, I did on Masterclass. It's like, oh, yeah, good plug. Masterclass is going, yeah.
Yeah.
What a pal, John Travolta.
So everyone's going to go see it, and of course, he makes money on the number of
But that's an
views,
example of what you're talking about. I mean, that's a behind the scenes, how they make it. I would love to see more of that stuff, and Apple could absolutely do that. It'd be amazing.
And they have the films. I mean, the big thing is the expensive thing is to build. I mean, like, I don't think people understand like how expensive Masterclass is. They shoot Masterclasses in the stage near me, and
gorgeous.
Very near me, and it's 60. The crew is like 60 people. Like, it's not like and they're building the sets from scratch. In a raw stage. I mean, these are not.
Wait a minute,
not messing around.
Wait a minute, those aren't shot on location. These are actually all on a sound stage.
It's all yeah.
Oh man,
I don't know if they're all that way, but definitely there's some.
I wouldn't be surprised because the quality, the lighting, and everything's so perfect that it makes sense. You're not gonna take over Steve Martin's apartment and set it all up.
Especially not how many murders happen in that building.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know it for sure. I don't know for sure if that's where they all are, but definitely some of them.
That makes a lot of sense, to be honest. They're too perfect. Yeah. There is one other thing that we didn't mention, which is product placement. Every one of these shows is rife with iPhones and iPads and MacBooks. Yeah,
but only the good people.
No bad guys. Do they give them Windows machines? I didn't see CODA. Is there a bunch there? No, see, they shot that before the Apple involvement. It's only the stuff like Ted Lasso that Apple actually produces that has all that stuff. Lasso's got a lot of iPhones in it.
Disney's got a ton of Android.
Do they? It really annoys me. Billions, which is a show about billionaire hedge fund managers and their shenanigans, is all Windows. It's Surface. They even have a Surface Studio, which Microsoft hasn't sold in years. It's all Surfaces everywhere.
One of my favorite moments on TV is when Microsoft inked this huge deal with CBS, and before that, all these shows were using iPads just because they were easy to get, and like they'd get out the car and type on their iPad. But as soon as the deal was inked, literally in like all these cop shows, they would pull the car over, get out, take out the Surface, put it down, unflip the stand, pull it in, mount it, like show off the animations, and the villain would be running halfway down the street by then. It was amazing.
Oh yeah. No, one of my favorite things about the old show Parks and Recreation was that they had a deal with Microsoft, and that was the only place anywhere probably in reality, not just media, that you'd find people using actual Windows phones, because all of them were using Windows phones and Surface tablets, and it's like, okay, maybe that's how weird this town actually is, that they're the one mutant demographic that actually sees the appeal of a Windows phone.
Now, I don't think the computers featured in Severance are actual Apple products. Maybe
the
they're
world where Atari won.
Could be future Apple products. Yeah, they're green screen. Actually, they're real working computers. Ben Stiller told E! News that the prop master sourced old computers and had them rebuilt so that they'd work. So, and they're running actual software so that the actors don't have to kind of pretend.
Yeah.
The best thing about that CBS deal, though, is that they would always, it was for Ford and for Microsoft, and they would always pause and teach you how the car or the Windows Phone worked in the middle of high-speed chases or criminal investigations. They would give you a lecture about how tiles or how cruise control worked. It was amazing integration.
I think that's important.
Quick, go to Bing Maps and let us know if there's a restaurant nearby. He's probably hanging out there.
Yeah, exactly.
But literally that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, let's take a little break. More to come. Rene Ritchie, youtube.com/Rene Ritchie. What are you working on these days?
Oh, I just finished all my Mac Studio and Studio Display coverage, and now I'm starting to warm up for WWDC in case that gets announced imminently.
It could be at any moment. Keep your eye peeled on your inbox.
Yes, and Apple.com.
Yeah. Andy Ihnatko, hot spotting today. Not from the library. It's going fine, though. It's working well. Yeah.
It's fine. Thank you. Thank you, AT&T 5G network service. It is, as long as my battery hangs out here.
Are you getting their ultra wideband or just regular 5G? What are you getting?
I'm afraid to touch my phone right now. And actually look,
Don't.
I did do a speed test, and I'm getting like an impressive 40 up, 40 down, and 8 or 9 or 10 up.
Nice.
And I haven't paid for any special service.
Yeah.
So that's an improvement upon. I won't tell. I don't know what the problem with my home internet is now, but I did a speed test when I noticed it was going wonking, and it was somewhere around 1.2 down, 0.8 up. That was I'm sorry. I will look into this. I will make alternative arrangements.
It is interesting though that in many cases now, if you're lucky enough to be near a 5G tower, and more of us are, especially the mid band, the ultra wideband or ultra capacity, as T-Mobile calls it. Yeah. It's better than home internet for most people. It's hundreds of megabits down and 30 or 40 up. It's incredible.
Yeah. It's. This is why I keep advising people, reminding people that once every year you have to go to your broadband provider and find out what rate plans are now available, because it's possible you're paying $40 a month for essentially what is now cell phone hotspot speed, and by paying the exact same amount of money, they will switch you to a higher service that gives you 3 or 4 or 5 times. Yeah. It is that the idea of having the idea of being able to connect to Dropbox faster than you can to a home server is, oh my goodness, what a wonderful world we live in.
WGBH Boston every week. Andy, it's great to have you. And of course, Alex Lindsay, who is the head honcho at officehours.global, going strong 24/7. Just amazing. What are you working on?
We have today we talked about iPhone production. So literally how we're using iPhones in production, and all the rigs we're using, and how we get sound into it, and how do we, there's a lot of people using those things there. And then tomorrow we break down green screen, like how to do it.
Fun.
But the real technology around it. So it's a lot of fun. And then a lot of us we have a stage that we built, and so a bunch of folks are jumping in and getting to kind of see behind the scenes of us. Started to test some concerts there, so it's a lot of fun right now.
090.media, his day job. If you want to stream with the best, our show today brought to you by IT Pro TV. We talk a lot about the consumer product from IT Pro TV, and a lot of you have become IT professionals, getting those certs you need to get that first job using IT Pro TV. But IT Pro TV has a business product too that's incredible. Your IT team, of course, is important to your business. They need the skills and knowledge to make sure your business is safe, secure, successful. And IT Pro TV has the kinds of courses that your employees, your IT department will love. More than 80% of users who start a video at IT Pro TV finish it because it's engaging, it's fun, it's informative, but it's not a drag. You don't want to assign them training that, they have to go kicking and screaming to. IT Pro TV, they actually look forward to it. All of the courses on IT Pro TV are divided up into half-hour or less chunks, so you can easily watch it during a lunch break, or, send them off to take a break and watch a particular chapter. In fact, that's one of the nice things. 5,800 hours of programming, more coming all the time. They've got the latest content. And they have transcripts, so you can search the transcripts and you can find a particular part. With IT Pro TV's business plan, you can actually assign, one chapter, say you need to study up on this. Or you can assign a whole course. They provide training for Microsoft, Cisco, Linux, Apple, security, cloud, also business skills, soft skills, not just IT stuff. The tech industry is changing rapidly, and your team can't just sit still. They need to add to their skills. Whenever a new software release comes out, a system upgrade, whenever there's a new cyber threat facing your business, IT Pro TV is there with the training you need to take care of business. You could track you'll love the dashboard, by the way. You could track your team's results, manage your seats, assign and unassigned team members, access monthly usage reports so you'll know they're using those subscriptions. You can see metrics like logins, viewing time, tracks completed, and a whole lot more. Manage teams. There's a subset of you can make any group a subset, so it doesn't have to just be this department or that department. You can actually say, you guys have to study this, you have to study that, customized assignments. You get reporting and immediate insights into your team's viewing patterns and progress over any period of time with visual reports that look great but also inform. It's just like IT Pro TV. It looks great, it's entertaining, but most importantly, it gives you the information you need to get the certs, to get recertified, to get the skills. That hands-on learning is fantastic. I love IT Pro TV. For individuals and now for business, give your team the IT development platform they need to level up their skills while enjoying the journey. For teams of 2 to 1,000, volume discounts start at 5 seats. Go to itpro.tv/MacBreak. And anybody can get a discount right now if you say MacBreak 30 when you sign up. Just tell your account executive, whisper, MacBreak 30. And they'll go, hey, now get 30% off or more on your business plan as well as your consumer plan. MacBreak 30 at itpro.tv/MacBreak. We've known these guys since they started the business and just very proud of their success. We're glad to have been partnered with them all this time. Thank you, IT Pro TV. Let's see here. There's a class action lawsuit. They may be sending you a check. Apple has agreed to pay $14.8 million to paid tier subscribers to iCloud for, quote, breach of contract regarding the iCloud service. Apparently, I wasn't upset, but apparently Apple breached the iCloud terms and conditions by storing iCloud user data using third-party servers rather than their own.
Well, they don't have first-party servers.
Yeah, it's all. Yeah.
It was all Amazon. It was all Azure and Amazon and Google.
Right. Fine. What did you think? What did you care? Anyway, September 16th through 2015 through January 31st, 2016, if you had a subscription to iCloud, you're in the class. You don't need to do anything. Make sure that the email you signed up for iCloud during that time is still active. You will get notification and a check, probably for $1.50. I
get so many of those.
I think it's actually
because Quebec is so litigious. I get like 18-cent emails all the time.
It's such a racket by the lawyers. Like this whole thing is a racket. We all get $2 each, and they get 40%. Right. So like that's how this all works. So it's just a racket.
Keep an eye on your email if you were using iCloud. That's pretty early.
I got it. I'm going to get $2.83. I mean, I can almost buy a cappuccino with
that. You will get more the more you subscribe to. Apple should have mentioned that.
Okay, maybe I can buy a cappuccino.
In the ads. Yeah, in the ads, they should have said, hey, get the higher tier, because when we do settle a lawsuit in 20 years, you're going to get more money. Yandex, the Russian Google, is apparently harvesting data from millions of iOS apps and sending them to Russia, whether or not you use the company's apps. Your data, this is from 9 to 5 Mac, Financial Times article. A security researcher discovered the code which sends data to Russia, and FT says it's independently verified the claims. Russia's biggest internet company has embedded code into apps found on mobile devices. Zach Edwards first made the discovery as part of an app auditing campaign for the Me2B Alliance, a nonprofit. FT had 4 independent experts. They ran tests, same thing. I wish there were a list here. Among the apps, so this was a service called App Metrica. So that, that's an easy sell to some app developers. Hey, you want to know how your users are using it? You've seen the checkbox. Send information back to the developer. Among the apps with App Metrica installed are games, messaging apps, location sharing tools, hundreds of virtual private networks. 7 VPNs are made specifically for a Ukrainian audience. That may be really why they want this, right? Hundreds of millions of installs of the App Metrica SDK, according to app figures. So I don't know what to say about that.
It's just hard to know. It's a lot like when you hear reports about, this is sending information back to China. This is sending information back to but there are private corporations in China, just like there are private corporations in the United States that like to monetize all this kinds of data. Obviously, the fact that of what's going on in Russia, and the fact that there are laws that say that, hey, if you collected data, we the government have a right to get at that data as well, makes things a little bit scary. But this in and of itself isn't a big problem. If anything, it just highlights the fact that there's so much embedded in all the apps and all the services that we use, that it's impossible to know where our data is going and who it's being exploited by.
Well, we finally reached 50 million euros. Apple has paid its last payment to the Netherlands regulators for
as Tim Cook flicks the dollars off of the outside of the roll. Like, here, kid.
Now let's hear no more of this. Yes.
That's the whole dubbed up beer budget.
Stay classy, Apple.
The Authority for Consumers and Markets, the Dutch regulator, has a new proposal from Apple, which they say should result in definitive conditions for dating app providers. Something that we all care about.
Love it. I just love this dating apps. Every time it comes up, I'm just like, really?
But
this is what
the ACM says Apple could face further penalties if the revised offer is ultimately deemed unacceptable. The ACM says, and I don't know how to do a Dutch accent, so don't worry, you're safe. ACM welcomes Apple's current step. The adjusted proposal should result in definitive conditions for dating app providers that wish to use the App Store.
Thank you for not just doing Gold Member. We all appreciate it.
So Apple has paid the maximum penalty of 10 payments of 5 million euros each. I hope they got a toaster or something.
Are they going to just subtly increase the price of iPhones in the Netherlands to compensate themselves for this?
I think they should have sent it in pennies.
Now, I did
tractor trailer. Here's $5 million in pennies.
I didn't bring this rumor up as a lead story, although some might say, "Oh, you missed the lead." Mark Gurman's Power On newsletter said Apple is working on a hardware subscription service for iPhones, and the only reason I don't know what this story means is they already kind of offer a payment plan that you get the new iPhone every year.
That's a leasing plan. This is a rental plan. Like right now, you can lease your iPhone. Now that you'll be able to rent it as well.
What is that? How's that different? I'm paying a monthly fee and I get a phone.
But you don't get to own it at the end.
Oh. Yeah. Well, in either case, right?
Well, it just means you pay a subscription and then what
is this rent to own? No. It's just rent to rent.
No.
Okay.
Right. They just swap it out every year. You get a new one.
But that's the same.
It is if you don't, but you can lease it and then at the end pay it off.
Oh.
But this one is, you're never going to have that expectation.
There's no payoff at the end. That's the only difference?
Yeah.
Well,
but it's a big difference for I'm sorry about this. Again, latency is killing us. But it's a big difference from in terms of how Apple explains itself to shareholders, that the problem with buying a phone is that a lot of people will think that even if you're paying them in installments, that, hey, I've got my phone. Hey, it works great. Hey, I have no need to upgrade. Thank you, Apple. I'm not sending you any more money month after month. If you turn into a service, essentially the relationship is that this is a subscription where every month on the first of the month, every single month, I'm going to be sending you $48, and that's going to be going on forever without any end in sight. And that's a much more reliable way of generating revenue. Plus, at some point, they swap out the phone. You get the phone back. You can turn that back into you can turn the hardware into a different channel. So. Again, but mostly it's about making sure there's a steady metronome of every single user is always giving me a certain amount of money every single month ad nauseum for 10 years if necessary.
We should say that Apple has not announced this. This is what the rumored plan would be.
Well, it's also much simpler to do things like roll in a general rental that is, roll a general rental that includes all of your Apple services along with the hardware. There can just be one big, as Andy said, $48 or $46 or $52 or whatever that you're paying a month, and you're getting your Apple TV Plus, you're getting your new, everything is all coming in that one rollout. In fact,
that would be interesting. So one flat fee for the whole shebang.
Yeah. You just get one check for all of that stuff plus whatever other. And then I think that with all the EU stuff, and depending on how the laws are written, you could see Apple putting in, you don't have to install it, but you can sign up and get basically a lot more core apps, where they just start basically doing Apple Arcade for apps, and then all of that's rolled into one big.
So essentially right now it's really an amortized lease. They do it through Citizen One. They divide the price of the phone by 12 or 24 months, and that's what you pay per month. Gurman says it would be a yet-to-be-determined monthly fee for this rental program that depends on which device the user chooses. The company has discussed allowing users of the program to swap out their devices for new models when fresh hardware comes out. That's something you do get with the Apple upgrade plan, right? So I think this is confusing. And would it be lower monthly cost or higher?
Yeah, I think it could. If you did lower, it would be lower than the lease. Okay. Because it's all bundled with a whole bunch of things. So you're getting the value would be much higher for
what
the
happens
user.
if you destroy the phone?
You get a nice bill.
You pay for the phone outright. Fully.
Yeah, it's like if you break any rental thing, but it's a very one thing is that a lot of these are US only, so like you have to constrain yourself to that market. But then the media, as soon as Apple announced Apple One, a lot of media outlets were like, well, why can't you get an iPhone with this? That makes total sense. Just bundle in the iPhone, and it's really an Apple One program. And then Google either announced or it was leaked that they're announcing, I'm fuzzy on the details, a similar rental program. And so this is something the market has really wanted Apple to do because they want money, basically more of our money, all of it.
Well, it's just much more stable.
Who would want this? Somebody wants a lower monthly payment. Is that who would want it?
And it's simplicity. You'll get all of the services for less money, but the company gets way more stable, much more stable income than trying to make that work, because you just know how many phones you need to make. You know how many things you need to do. You have your ability. The subscription's always better for the company, but you can also if you these are all digital products, and so you can start lowering those prices a fair bit. It's all a little bit made up, and so you can not all. I mean, there is some cost, but not nearly what we're getting charged most of the time, and so. So Apple can, bundle you can keep bundling into this thing where it's a really nice business model, because the chances of someone leaving it becomes lower and lower.
Yeah, it's good for stickiness.
Yeah.
All right, I don't understand, but I'm sure we'll all be crystal clear when they announce it.
Don't buy, Leo. They don't buy houses. They don't buy cars. Right. They want to rent everything. If you could do an Apple Share program where you would tap it, no, you can't tap because you don't have an iPhone, but you'd hit something and the iPhone would show up for the long period of time you needed it, then it would go to somebody else. They do that too.
Apple makes more money if you pay less per month. How?
Because it's the other thing is that it's stable income. It means that it's
an accounting thing. They prefer it that way. They book it every
not only
month.
that, they will make. The thing is that more and more people buy into it. The lock-in is intense. Like it's like you're now.
I would think
really
you'd less
own any
locked
of that
in
stuff.
because are you month to month? Maybe you're not month to month.
All your services are tied in, and then they resell the phone when you get the new one. They resell the other one in the in the emerging markets, which is gangbuster business for them as well.
Okay. And then also when you make this transitory, this is where all of these things in the App Store become. That's the friction, is that now you have to re-register for all those things and re-sign in and everything else, and that'll have a downward. It'll be both, and especially if you have a rental where you're just changing them out. The apps that you only stick with the apps that are outside the App Store 1 year, because as soon as you have to do the update, you'll be like, do I really need CNN Plus?
iFixit finally has torn down the Mac Studio. We saw Max Tech's teardown on YouTube, but this is the more kind of formal thing. And one of the things that Max Tech's teardown raised this issue of these additional slots in the Mac Studio Logic board that looked like they were for additional storage cards.
Alas.
iFixit did a lot of testing. We popped this stick into another base model Mac Studio's empty slot, but you kept getting DFU restore errors. No matter the configuration, we haven't got 2 base model drives to boot simultaneously in a single machine. There was one thing they could do. When we swapped the spare Studios drive for the one in the Teardown unit and used Configurator to do a DFU restore, it worked. That's what you were saying, or somebody was saying. Maybe it was Doc Rock. That signs the storage and says now, oh yeah, it's mine.
Yeah.
The slots are only there for Apple's SKU convenience.
Yeah, we were saying that last week. Yeah.
You can't have someone be able to take a storage drive out of one machine, put it in another, and get access to all your data. So that's why that's all up.
Right. Well, that would be nice if a machine dies and you could take the card out and save it as you can with a PC.
But then the Five Eyes love that too, Leo.
Well, just take the drives. Thank you. You can keep the computer. Yeah. Storage swaps are possible between 2 drives of the same size. The jury's still out on upgrades, says iFixit. Perhaps a software update will make the spare slot worthwhile, but right now it's not.
And one thing to point out is that the reason that they're often soldered, welded, whatever, onto the boards in mobile devices is because one of the most common tech support issues Apple faced was people just unseating them over normal course of business, like dropping them or banging them around in their bags would become unseated, and that would be a tech support incident. So just welding them in was fine. And because those products are so much more popular than Macs, keeping all those SKUs around is not a problem. This is a very small batch product for Apple. It's designed for enthusiasts. So this lets them assemble SKUs on the fly. Like if you want 4 terabytes or 8 terabytes, they can just pop that in, send the model out, and not have to make a separate version of the board for every SKU. So it's for their efficiency, not for our configurability.
They did do a very clean, nice picture of the logic board and the chip. They didn't get an Ultra; they only got a Max. Yeah. So this is different. They took the plastic, I guess, off the die, right? Is that what happened there?
Yeah.
And so now these are the RAMs, these black squares, or the ALUs or whatever they call it. And then this is the chip in here, the in this case the Max. Big old fan. By the way, they call it a fan or quadcopter. It's massive helicarrier. Dual fan assembly. I have to say, I am so impressed with my Mac Studios. At least, as I said, Lisa has the Ultra. I have the Max. The fan's on all the time, but it's so quiet you don't hear it, and never gets hot, never gets warm, no thermal problems.
Yeah, they're messing
ever.
with your mind. They have like a bunch of different fans that are going at different frequencies that are hard for humans to hear, and it doesn't let them combine up to make a louder frequency either. So they do a lot of shaping on that kind of stuff. Yeah. That whole audio lab is fantastic. Ever since they got that audio lab set up, they do things like they try to figure out using machine learning where your ear is when you hold the thing up, and they do all sorts of different kind of advanced sound design. Yeah.
6 to 10 on the repairability scale, mostly because it's a system on a chip, so you can't upgrade the RAM. and the fans, they said, are buried, and the storage being non-upgradable. So, but that 6 to 10 is actually pretty good. I mean, I didn't expect more than that.
I just wish that the fans were easier to clean. The fact that the fact that half of that volume is just fans, and the fact that these fans are on almost all the time shows you how important it is that these things work to spec. True. And the thing is, if you don't, that is regular, routine, periodic maintenance every 3 to 4 months. Open up the case, run a vacuum in there, get rid of all the dust that's accumulated in there. So if that becomes a problem, I shouldn't have to go back to the Apple store every time, just to show people that yes, I own a fan.
Here's what the studio display looks like when you open it up. Oh, it also has, these are 2 big fans, and you know that because just like the studio computer, the display is always fan is always on and blowing.
The LED
up the
back panel is hot.
Is it? Yeah. They also took a look at. Wow, this is really cool. I mean, this is a computer. It's not just a display.
I'm kind of sad there's no Wi-Fi. Like one of my dreams with this product is like Apple's done something like really unusual. AirPods have gotten feature upgrades year after year. They got spatial audio, they got conversation boost. They're getting new features at every WWDC like their computers because they are. And this has an A13 in it. So I was hoping like maybe they'll get stereo pairing for people who have 2 of them. But if they had Wi-Fi in this, like Apple crams Wi-Fi into everything, they could announce, hey, hey, we're adding built-in AirPlay and Sidecar to the Apple Studio display so that if you come in and it's set up on your Mac Studio, but you just want to use it for a few seconds with your MacBook, you don't have to move any cables. You can just take it over. I think that would be great. So I'm hoping that maybe they'll address that in the future.
Well, even a picture-in-picture that belongs inside of the display that is playing something that you want to watch, but you can keep on working and you're not worried about the two of them kind of interacting with each other. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I think it would be just as interesting if the power cord were removable.
Oh my God!
I didn't. It never
It is removable, but you need a special tool.
Yeah,
you need to pull like your Linus.
Yeah, it's like I don't think anybody would ever imagine that this thing. Anyway, I don't know how to explain it. I hope that they have a really good explanation of why they were unable to put in something that makes it A, obvious this thing is removable on its own, and B, to make sure that if I get a problem with the plug end of it, that I don't have to make a service call in order to get this fixed. It's such a weird.
So I have that, but you may not like it. Like I have the explanation, but you may not like it. So it's a couple of things. It's all design is compromise and everything is a trade-off. And this is what they were coming up against. They wanted to make it thin. They wanted to make it with Apple's aesthetic, but you can't do MagSafe like you do on the iMac unless you have a power brick. And they didn't want to put a power brick on it. So if they put a power brick on it, they could do MagSafe and then nobody would have a problem with it. Even though MagSafe is also proprietary. So it's weird. People yell about the cable, but still want MagSafe. Not Andy, but like there were people on the internet yelling that they would rather have MagSafe, even though that's still proprietary. But then it's so shallow, like they can't put a normal plug in there. So they designed this very shallow plug in there, but it's incredibly fragile. And they figured if it was too easy to remove, there's no intent behind it, people would just pop it off and on, and they would inevitably break it and then require a service incident.
Okay. That's fine. I get it.
No space for those plugs.
It wasn't just, there's a reason for it. That's fine. Does that satisfy you?
I would have taken the power brick.
Well, I agree. I would take the power brick too. But do they communicate that, look, don't keep pulling on this, you're going to break it?
No, they don't. There should be a
Linus's
sign
video
on
where
it.
he almost breaks it.
Yeah. Exactly. I saw it and I'm like, okay, I love the way that LTT does videos, because they really do play the role of the user in all of this. They don't just get a briefing and say, oh well, we were told this. No, they actually do. Do you look at this and do you think to yourself, this looks like it's supposed to be removable? Maybe I'm just not pulling hard enough. Or does it communicate either by language or by fitting that no, don't keep pulling on this, you will break it? Really, it wasn't until I saw someone put on Thingiverse their own version of that removal tool that I figured out, that I feel as though I understood exactly how this is supposed to work. Because a power cord is a very, very easy thing to break, and what a slap in the face it would be if it became a very difficult thing to replace.
Yeah. Here he is pulling out. There is a web page that says don't disconnect it, but he pulls it out. It is. Look how shallow it is. Look how short it is.
And I like his toque. He gets bonus points for the Canadian toque.
Nice toque, dude. Nice toque. All right. Yeah, he's brave. He's a brave man, but obviously makes enough money on LTT to pay for breaking his hardware.
It was hilarious because he was ranting about how it wasn't removable, and then they saw Nilay's tweet because Nilay just pulled it. Like someone asked, and Nilay's like, "Yeah, ha, lol," and showed the picture of it, and they couldn't figure it out. So he went and made them go find the studio display and bring it to him. And then he couldn't get it out. Then they thought Nilay maybe had an engineering sample, not a real one, so he pulled harder, and then it finally came out.
Anything's removable with enough force.
Yes,
it's whether it's replaceable that's the problem.
Exactly.
Right. Whether you put it back in or not. Anything's
removable once. just like every phone could be folded once.
Yeah.
Yes, it's whether it's unfoldable or not that matters.
Here is X-Ray from Creative Electron via iFixit of the Mac Studio. Always like these. They make nice wallpaper.
Yeah.
And whoops, I zoomed in a little too far. And then here is the fan assembly, the side view of the fan assembly. Yeah, it'd be nice.
It's drone, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty cool looking. What really blows me away is that it's just this middle thin layer that's the whole computer. 90% of the volume is dedicated to power supply and fans.
Putting an M1 into an Apple keyboard is so interesting because basically you have the Apple II all over again, but in a tiny little keyboard.
Yeah. And Apple ID or your driver's license as an Apple Wallet has finally launched in the first state, Arizona. There are other states who have said we're going to do it: Colorado, Hawaii, Mississippi, Ohio, and the Port Territory of Puerto Rico. You can use this at a TSA checkpoint in some airports, not all yet. It tells you, I like this, what information is passed off when you do the touch to pay or touch to ID, I guess it would be called. So you know what they're getting. And I've heard that ultimately you'll be able to choose what they get. TSA wants it all, probably. So you can use it at Phoenix's Sky Harbor Airport. I presume law enforcement in Arizona has been notified.
Oh, yeah. Nothing bad's going to happen in Arizona.
No. Sheriff, they said I could use my phone.
Get out of the car. I said get out of the car.
Yeah. Arizonans can add their driver's license or state ID to the wallet and then tap their iPhone or Apple Watch to present your ID at select TSA security checkpoints.
Yeah. No, that's a part of the good thing about that is that you don't have to cede control of the object in order to give this person what they're demanding. So this would be a terrible thing if you had to hand over your phone for the person to put into a reader, because that essentially you've consented to a lot of things by consenting to hand over a phone. By keeping this in your hand and just allowing them to read it with a device, you can control that they only get to see the things that you're permitting them to see.
Love that.
So in the case of a traffic stop, that's one thing. But it also means that when you try to get into a club that serves alcohol, you can essentially prove that you're over 21 without giving them a card that says here's my address, here's my here's my address, here's my full name, here's a whole bunch of other things. It's the idea of only giving the agent exactly the amount of information that they require to do their job, and not allowing them to exploit it by having access to. That's great. I'll just take your phone back to my squad car. I'll be back in 8 minutes, depending on how long the cable, depending on what cable I find in the.
Here's what it looks like using your watch at a TSA checkpoint. You tap it to the NFC, then you double click, and then it's done. Now, the Apple press release does not mention anybody but the TSA. So I'm thinking if you're in Arizona, you might want to carry your driver's license with you when you drive.
I would also make sure that Flappy Bird was still on there. So if they did take my phone, there was something on them for them to do without, like, why are you taking so long? No reason. Blip, 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 blip.
Yeah, I can't imagine that they're going to equip every trooper with a handheld card reader device. But maybe that's the plan. I don't know. That seems unlikely. I think that's probably why it's TSA.
Find illegal Canadians and they'll leap on it.
Yeah. Well,
they could have it in the phone. You're right, John. Maybe that's why they've added that. When they added that pay on a phone, they added that as well. That's interesting.
This is going to be a difficulty that as a country we might have to kind of address. The problem is that for traditional reasons, the federal government can't demand that here's what your state ID has to do. They have guidelines. Excuse me, for digital ID, they have issued guidelines as to here is what we would believe to be a secure and proper amount of technology to put into a digital ID system. However, it's not as though there can be a federal ID that everybody complies to. So essentially every single state is coming up with their own solutions, which is why a company like Apple can add a lot of value here by saying, well, we have a solution that follows federal guidelines, that is also very future looking, that is also very privacy oriented, that you don't really have to spend 8 years on a fact-finding mission to figure this out. So it's going to be difficult when you have like an Android standard, when you have an Apple standard, when you have a Garmin watch standard. We might have. Exactly. We might have to figure out a whole bunch of stuff in order to make this really work the way that tap to pay works.
All right, gentlemen, get your picks ready, because picks of the week coming up next.
I just had one last little thing to say, because like one thing that you find immediately with all of this is that when you see people discussing this online, and this is a surprise to nobody here, but it's amazing how many people don't understand that bills of rights and laws and things like that vary country to country, but also don't mean what Twitter hot takes really say they mean, like whether it's freedom of speech or licenses or all of these things. It's like you actually have to go and look at them. So do what Andy suggested and go look at the different states and look at the different countries even, because you'd be surprised. You know, how functional democracies exist in many weird and wonderful ways.
I've heard there's a country called Canada, a fabled land north of the 49th parallel that is like
Canada
the
has
United
freedom.
States, but
Belgium
different.
has freedom.
But Belgium doesn't
also-
have poutine, so.
No.
I hear
they
someday
have-
they're gonna. Every time I think about that, I always hear that someday Canada is going to invade us, and then we'll all be sorry.
But the beer
No,
will
we
be
have
better.
water. It's the other way around.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have water. You're going to definitely invade us.
Yeah, exactly.
I shouldn't have said that.
Get your picks ready. Picks of the week coming up. First, I want to tell you how well I slept last night. I put this 8 sleep thing. Kevin Rose told me about this. Amy Webb and Kevin Rose were on a TWiT show together. Amy bought it. She said, Leo, you got to get this. It's the best sleep we've ever had. 8 sleep is a breakthrough. I think it's amazing. And one of the biggest problems people have with sleep is temperature, right? Sleeping too hot, too cold. 8 Sleep solves this. We have an 8 Sleep Pod Pro cover. You can also get a Pod Pro mattress. The cover went right over our mattress. And then it is a very advanced solution that pairs not only heating, so your bed is nice and cozy, for instance, when you get in bed, but dynamic cooling. And it does it with biometric tracking. So it can go as cool as 55 degrees, this is Fahrenheit, or as hot as 110 degrees. And you get to choose, but it also will monitor your sleep and adjust it accordingly. The temperature of the cover adjusts 2 sides, by the way. Lisa likes to sleep hotter than I do. And it does it based on your sleep stages, on biometrics, the bedroom temperature. It reacts intelligently to create the optimal sleeping environment. And somebody explained it to me this way. Our bodies are built for an earlier time when we were sleeping in a perhaps less civilized environment, where maybe it was warmer when you went to bed and the fire we just put out, but it got colder as the night went by. Your body expects that. And then, you wake up and you want to warm it up again. And that's how I have my 8 Sleep set, by the way, and then probably most of you will. So it starts nice and cozy. I get in and it's very comfortable. Lisa always loves that feeling. She gets in bed. She goes, oh, it's so warm. It's nice. Oh, it's so good. Now, she likes to keep it pretty warm. I let it cool off as the night goes by, and I notice I do sleep much more deeply. And then it's set to wake me by warming up. Now, this is the thing I like the best, because I don't know about you, but the worst thing in the winter, the worst thing my whole life is getting out of bed. You're nice and cozy in bed, and it's freezing out. Or worse, the covers have fallen off overnight, and you're freezing in bed. I love this. It puts you to sleep in record time. It keeps you asleep, and then you wake up naturally at the time you set. It's the Pod Pro cover. It's 8 Sleep. I want to say the name again. I haven't said it enough. 8 is spelled out EIGHT. It is the most advanced solution on the market for thermoregulation, and it really, really works. Reduce sleep interruptions by 40% and overall get more restful sleep. You will wake up feeling incredible, ready for anything that might come along during the day. It's vital for physical recovery, hormone regulation, mental clarity. Show up as the best partner, parent, or version of yourself, powered by 8 Sleep. I am totally a believer. Amy Webb and Kevin Rose convinced me once we got it. We've had it now for some months. It's amazing. It's so nice. Oh, see, Leo Laporte approved. It's all done kind of automatically, which is really nice. I know when I get in bed, it's going to be warm, and it's going to cool off, and it's going to get warm again in the morning. That's how I have it set. 8sleep.com/MacBreak. You'll save $150 at checkout when you get the Pod Pro cover. 8 Sleep currently ships within the U.S., Canada, and the U.K. U.S., Canada, and U.K. 8sleep.com/MacBreak. Good night's sleep is the holy grail. I will do almost anything to sleep better. And as you get older, your sleep gets lighter. Your sleep is not as good. This has made a big difference for both me and Lisa. She's not as old as I am, but she loves it. She's got a sore muscle. She exercises too much, I think, on her side. But it's like having a little heating pad on it. It's just really nice. It's really wonderful. 8sleep.com/MacBreak. We thank them so much for their support of MacBreak Weekly. The Dark Tipper approves. That's right. Micah, you have one too. I didn't know that. Micah says he's a believer too. Nice. Very nice. All right, pick of the week time. Let's start with Rene Ritchie.
So just because the world is so silly right now, I wanted to pick something that was just so much fun, a lot of fun. And I realize people are probably really familiar with this already, but in case you aren't, it is so worth a few minutes of your time. I'm talking about Montreal YouTuber Ryan George, who you might know from doing all the Screen Rant pitch meeting videos, where he shows that you don't need a lot of fancy equipment or anything. I'm going to stop talking for a second. Can you start that one over?
Should I turn on the audio? This is Superman Does Good.
Audio.
Oh, it's short.
Hey, Clark Kent. Good morning. How you doing? Oh, I'm doing good. Actually, Superman does good. You're doing well. It.
I bet you Superman's tempted to do that. So these are like almost like TikToks. They're short.
Well, he did this a long time ago before TikTok, and most of his videos are long now. They're 4 minutes to 6 minutes, and he does them. There's a new Screen Rant channel that just debuted where they moved his pitch meetings off to, and pitch meeting is famous. It's like he goes in to pitch a movie that we've all seen, and he tears the movie apart in the funniest way imaginable by being the writer who's pitching it to the studio guy. And the writer is every worst cliche about writers. The studio guy is every worst cliche about studio guys. And he plays both parts on 2 different green screens. So you really don't have to have a lot of equipment to do this. And he's famous. He's like pitching Game of Thrones season 8. And she's like, she goes away on a horse and then comes back on foot. What about the horse? We forgot about the horse. It was a very forgettable horse. And just go through bit by bit about all these things.
Is he a comic? Was he a comic first?
Yes.
Okay.
He's a comic and he does sketches, and like he'll always, they get millions of views on Screen Rant, but he has his own channel and he's famous for doing like the first guy ever to commit a crime or the first guy ever to be arrested. And the cop will come in and say, we decided to put you in this room for several years, we decided. And they just try to figure out what's going on. But it's he works with Julie Nolke sometimes, another famous sketch artist, but they make you laugh. We
need this.
We need this. And he's gotten to 1 million subscribers. I mean, his channel is really well known. But in case you just need a little bit of sunshine in your day.
Ryan George.
If you could just show like a few seconds of the other one, I think people will
Which
get
one?
it.
Screwdriver? Which one?
No, in the Google Doc.
Okay.
I put one of the Screen Rant videos in there as well. Yeah.
Let me show it. Here we go. This is Game of Thrones Season 8 pitch meeting.
So you have Game of Thrones Season 8 for me? Yes, sir, I do. And I really want this to be over, so can we speed this pitch meeting up, please? Oh, I mean, we literally just started. Well, I'm in a rush, so, let's get cracking. I mean, okay. So anyway, the first 2 episodes are going to be people kind of meeting and reuniting in Winterfell. Arya's going to sleep with Gendry. Oh, having seen her grow up on the show, that makes me extremely uncomfortable. Is she 18? That's certainly what people are going to Google, but yes, she is. Yikes, okay. And then episode 3 is going to be when the Night King and his army are going to arrive in Winterfell. Oh my god, the moment we've been building towards for 8 seasons. Yeah, and so Bran reveals that the Night King wants him because he's kind of like the memory of Westeros. Oh, why? Because that's his motivation. Well, okay then. So then the Dothraki charge at the dead army and they pretty much all get wiped out.
I'm getting a little bit of PTSD reliving Season 8, so I'm going to stop right now.
Well, that's the whole point. Yeah, So, but he's and the movies that you hate, he justifies why you hate those movies. But the movies that you love, he'll tear apart like the original Star Wars, and you have to agree with him, and you're laughing along with him, even though you don't care. You love it anyway. But he gets you to acknowledge that a lot of the stuff is subjective, and you can love bad movies, you can hate good movies. It's all good. It's fine.
That's from the Screen Rant channel, which has 8.5 million subscribers. So but there are other people on Screen Rant, or?
Yeah, so they just moved that over to a new channel called Pitch Meeting. So all the new pitch meetings are going to be on that channel.
Ah, nice.
But,
good pick. Thank you, Rene. Andy Ihnatko.
Just to make us laugh.
We need to laugh. Pick of the week.
Big update to one of iOS's best apps, Marco Arment's podcatcher, which sorry. I almost lost the thing there. Sorry. Overcast, which essentially what I love about Marco Arment as a developer is that he has a unique and a specific point of view. He makes something because he feels as though this thing needs to be made.
I do like points of view. I agree.
Exactly.
I agree.
And that was absolutely demonstrative when the first version of Overcast came out. I don't think there was any other podcatcher that really put so much emphasis on the act of listening to a podcast. It was so many podcatchers were just very, very technical. And he just released what he said is the biggest visual, at least, update to the thing in 8 years. He totally rethought what the visual interface should be like, and it is much, much prettier. It is much less minimalist. I think when it first came out, it was very much an iOS 7 aesthetic, which is anything that catches your eye, remove it because it's catching your eye. But the two big things I really love about it is that although I've always loved the playback features of Overcast, the only thing I didn't like about it is that sometimes it wasn't as great at managing these. You've got subscriptions to 40, 50 podcasts, of which maybe there are 3 today you want to take a look at. And sometimes it didn't make it as easy as it could to identify those podcasts that, hey, I'm going to be going for an hour-long walk. Here's the show that I want to listen to right now. So it makes it much, much easier to discover the ones that here's the new ones that came out today. Here are the ones that you were recently listening to that maybe you abandoned in the middle. If you have a playlist of specific podcasts that you use for the morning drive, you can put those playlists just front and center, first order of retrievability on the user interface. And also he added something that was very, very basic, I thought, which is simply to say, just mark something as read or mark something as listened to, and basically remove it from my consciousness completely, because thank you. I don't want to hear this actor who has a movie every 3 months and he spends every interview talking about how much weed he smokes. Thank you very much. I don't need to hear that again. So I'm just going to mark that as listened to. So as if anything else, it's a great opportunity to once again sing the praises of Overcast. If Marco weren't Marco, I think that Apple would have bought this app a long time ago, because it is so much better than the built-in podcast app. It is so much more user-focused. It's so much cleaner, and I'm just glad it exists. And this is a major, major update. I'm very, very. I really want to applaud all the work that's gone into this, because it is a resource that iOS absolutely needed.
Overcast.fm. Of course, you're going to put it on your iPhone, so you should probably go to the iPhone store to get it. How much is it? Is it free?
No, it's. I've actually forgotten.
It's not a subscription.
And I tipped as much as I possibly could for the next 100 years.
Yeah.
So that just upfront all the money.
The only negative
from our it is free.
It's free. Yeah, but there's just
free, supported by small visual ads to promote podcasts, but you can hide them for $10 a year.
There you go. If you don't want to see the ads, $10 a year.
Cheap, but twice the price.
And the only knock at all on it is that it doesn't do video, and all of our shows have video. But if you're just an audio listener, which most people are, Overcast is a great choice, and it has the speed up function, which everybody wants for our shows. Listen at twice the speed and get twice as much done.
Trained on old debug episodes. That's not anecdotal either.
Is that true? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, Guy English. When Guy English and I used to host that podcast, I speak very fast, and Guy has pregnant pauses that last an episode or two. So it was one of the best shows that he could tune.
Alex Lindsay, pick of the week.
So we were talking about production this morning on phones, and I thought I would show something that we talked about a little bit. And this is actually the inspiration for a lot of this is Tom Ferguson, who's one of our folks in office hours. We were talking about it. He's, but this is the best rig, and I looked at his rig and I was like, I have to buy one of those. And so I bought one, and then I bought 2 more. So I have like 3 of these rigs, and so this is the small rig, small rig. The small rig really started with like SLR phones, and so the fact that they make such an amazing collection of these for iPhones. So you have quarter 20s. These are all quarter 20 cool. Mounts on pretty much every angle. This handle is just one of the accessories that just kind of screws in. It's got more quarter 20s on the top. And so for a lot of us building complex rigs with this, it's just a beast. And they make a couple different ones. What's funny is there's another iPhone that is attached to my mic stand that is the phone that's shooting the phone right now. So it's, using it kind of in that process. But you can also put moment lenses. These are just the mounts, so you can take moment lenses and screw them on there. So it kind of builds that all in, and it's really nice, and especially as a lot of us have gotten to start to use these for more and more production. I mean, oops, sorry, I hit the wrong button. I'm not buying the whole like we could build a film with this, but what I will say is we can build a lot of training, we can build a lot of communications, news gathering, all kinds of stuff with these phones at this point. But what's missing is usually being able to mount them, and so I still have another one from Peak Design that I like on a day-to-day basis. But for the phones that are doing production, these are just incredible erector sets of I want to put a bunch of stuff onto my phone and make it and really, have all the features that I need to do a more professional job. And you really can produce some pretty great content. I built most of my like how-to training for some of our kits and so on and so forth. It's just too much trouble to use a real camera. Like I just take my iPhone and I grab one of these rigs and I start to just shoot the things that I need to shoot. And it's great. The cooking stuff that we do in office hours or after hours, I have 3 iPhones that shoot all of that, and so it's quite a thing. So they've come a long way.
For Hank, he would.
I think Hank would probably like it a lot. It's super. It's surprising how much it takes. I thought that I didn't really need it. I was like, I have one of those little clamps that'll just work. But the reality is, once you start throwing it into this rig, you start just thinking about other things you can do and you start attaching them, and it gives you it's easy and fun. So small rig. I didn't even know that they were making them until like a week ago, until it came up in office hours.
So they make rigs for everything, but they have iPhone rigs, which is really
what's funny is I use the small rigs on all my Blackmagic cameras too. So they're bigger cages, for my Blackmagic cameras. But I didn't know that they made them for phones until last week. So and as soon as I got them, I was like, I went out, bought one, then bought 2 more, and I've been using them for all the rigs that I'm.
Not just phones. You can use your iPad. They do some Samsung and Huawei phones as well. That's really pretty cool. I love that. Yeah, they also have a universal mount. But yeah, you'd want to get the one that fits your phone exactly. That's pretty cool. Good pick. Thank you, Alex. Alex is at 090.media. If you want to hire him, officehours.global is on the air all the time. But the big hour is what, 8 to 9 a.m. Pacific, right?
It's 7 to 9 is when we do office hours, and that's when we're doing kind of high, just answering people's questions and talking about different subjects, and then in after hours runs the rest of the day. And it's funny, it's just the most geeky water cooler in the world. Like you go up there and you got a question. For media folks, this is for me. Like literally, I'm trying to figure something out. I'll just jump up in after hours and I'll be like, "Hey, Mickey, like, are you there?" And then you see a whole bunch of cameras that are all off, and someone turns the camera on. And I go, "Oh yeah." And then you start talking about something, and then you go back to what you were doing, and it's way faster than Google, and way better. Like you actually have people that know what they're talking about, and
of course today's episode was all about rigs for your iPhone.
About the rigs, and tomorrow we'll dig into green screen in a fair bit of detail.
Officehours.global. You fill out a form there if you want to get an invitation to the Zoom, or you can just watch. Mr. Andy Ihnatko, when will you be on GBH next?
My usual time, 12:30 in the afternoon on Friday. Go to wgbhnews.org to stream it live or later. And it looks like I will be at the Boston Public Library Studios. So if you grab a cup of coffee in the cafe adjoining, watch me fumble through notes while trying to maintain my announcer, very, very competent, knowledgeable tech nerd voice. While I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I know I got that number here somewhere. Scroll.
You could do
Why didn't I highlight
a very credible Walter Cronkite, actually. You'd be good at that. I think you could.
That's the way it is.
That's the way it is. Thank you, Andy Ihnatko. Rene Ritchie is at youtube.com/Rene Ritchie. Anything? So you said you've done all your studio stuff.
Yes.
Now what?
I did full reviews on the studio display. Then I did a follow-up on benchmarking, because increasingly benchmarking has become easier due to prepackaged apps, but harder because of APUs and SoCs. And a lot of what you see, I think, thrown around is what I call benchmark LARP.
Yes,
where it's like you press a button, but you don't know what it actually means.
Yeah.
We talked about this on the show, so I did a whole video just explaining why it's really hard, and like, is it hitting an E-core or a P-core? Is it hitting a neural engine or a media engine? Like, just explaining what really goes into like an Anantech style review. So I'm trying to do, not just complain, but provide some better information.
youtube.com/Rene Ritchie. Thank you, Rene. Thanks to our club members who made this show and all of the shows we do possible with their $7 a month donations. If you go to twit.tv/clubtwit, you can sign up there. There's individual and corporate memberships. You get, of course, ad-free versions of all the shows. You're already paying. We don't need to show you ads. But you also get access to the Club Twit Discord, which is a great time, not just during the shows, but all the time. And the Twit Plus feed, which includes material that does not get put out to the public, like the Untitled Linux Show, the Giz Fizz, Stacy's Book Club, Paul Thurrott is coming up at the end of the month with the After Hours, stuff like that. It's all at twit.tv/clubtwit, and thank you so much for your support. Now, I should say that, of course, we offer a lot of free stuff, including this show. We tape it. They're showing my age. We digitize it every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1800 UTC. You can watch at live.twit.tv or listen. There's live audio and video streams there. If you're watching or listening live, chat live at irc.twit.tv, our community-run IRC chat. There's also the Discord chat, a lot of people in there as well. After the fact, you can get the show at twit.tv/mbw. That's our website, twit.tv/mbw for MacBreak Weekly. There's a link to the YouTube channel there, too. Every one of the shows has their own dedicated YouTube channel. And, of course, if you're using Overcast or any other podcast player, you can subscribe. If those podcast players allow us to allow you to review, please leave us a 5-star review, because that would help us a lot. I think we've run through this reel of film. So before we have to change the cartridge, I think it's time to say, get back to work, because break time is over. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Is that an iPhone in your hand? Wait a second. Is that an Apple Watch on your wrist? And do I see an iPad sitting there on the table? Oh my goodness. You are the perfect person to be watching iOS Today, the show where Rosemary Orchard and I, Micah Sargent, talk all things iOS, tvOS, watchOS, HomePod OS. It's all the OSs that Apple has on offer, and we show you how to make the most of those gadgets. Just head to twit.tv/iOS to check it out.